but I
Okay.
can count you. You want me to
All
push you
good.
away?
Okay.
I
No,
can
no, no.
push you
All good.
away. All right.
No, no, no.
Hi everyone. Welcome to the Katie Halper Show. How's it going, Nando Villa?
I'm doing well. How about you? I'm in bed.
You're in bed. Are you sick?
No, I just have to hide. I have guests in my apartment, and I have to, I have to be away from them, so I can't be in my main living
Right.
room. I live in like a two-story loft, so it's hard to get privacy. You know.
You want me to talk to them? Like,
Yeah. Talk to them. They're
what's his
here
name?
watching the Heat game.
The Heat. Love him.
Yeah, the Heat.
What's your friend's name?
Jose,
From
and he's here
Spain?
with my girlfriend. No, he's Cuban.
Uh oh.
I turned him from a Republican to Bernie bro.
How? Come get him on. Let's have a. Can we talk? Can we have a teachable moment? Or is he shy?
He's shy. I mean, he's actually not shy, but I don't know. He's going
Let's.
on a date in a little bit, so he's a little nervous.
Well, we can give him advice.
It's true. We could give him
Ask him
advice.
if he wants to come on. Besides, maybe he needs a New York friend.
uh, no, it's okay. It's okay.
Text him while I'm doing this. Just text
I
him in
will.
case. All right,
I will.
I'm gonna. You know what? I'm gonna kick you out so you can get that resolved in case he wants to come on
I'm
without any
drinking in
pressure.
Manhattan.
I know
Is that
you have a
cool?
very good girlfriend. Yeah, everyone asks if you're straight or gay, and now they know you. Well, you could be many things, but you happen to have a girlfriend. I'm gonna kick you out because I want to see if you want Jose to come on,
Yeah.
and if he
I'm
says
sorry,
yes,
ladies and gents. I am spoken for.
right. Well, you could be polyamorous.
I.
You
That's
could
true.
be ethically
Yeah, guys. I'm
non-monog.
Polly.
I'm poly. I'm gonna say I'm mono. I'm so sick of that shit. No
Yeah.
offense to poly people, but
No
it's like
one
I
is
don't need to
actually
know.
Polly.
You think everyone's just like getting some on the side and pretending it's.
It's just like it's just what everyone wants. It's just like to be able to like bang on the side, but I don't
Maybe
know
there are
that
people. I mean,
that
it's
causes
not.
like all kinds of problems.
Well, I mean, there are people who uh actually are committed to it ethically.
I guess.
All right. I want to give Jose dating advice and get his political advice.
All right,
Go
Jose.
ask him.
They want to give you dating advice
And oh,
on live TV. They
yeah,
also want to hear about how you turned
your
from
political
being a
transformation. Yeah.
Cuban American like Republican psychopath to a Bernie bro. He's going. Can I pass?
You can, but you can. Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
it's good because I need to know. It's good that now I know he's an anti-Semite. So, it's just a
Yeah.
question of tell him that was the test. I'm just kidding, everyone. You'll have to tell us about that though another time, Nando.
Yeah.
Um, where's the date gonna be? In California?
Yeah. In Venice,
I,
where I live.
in Venice. Wow, that must be a fun place to go on dates.
It
Easy
is. It's
to social distance,
very
right?
vibey. It's very
Vibey,
vibey.
yeah, yeah. Um, okay, so we're gonna get canceled because you're polyphobic.
Honestly, my
I'm
favorite thing about
polyanoid. Yeah, that's a good paraphrase.
I my favorite thing about useful idiots is the when you say something problematic and you have to hit the button.
We haven't
Um,
had the woke button in a while, but
I
yeah, I
know
got to bring it back. Yeah, Nandi. They're calling
it's
you Nandi.
one of your best ideas.
I know, one of our signature
You know
moves.
that have you seen that little black girl who plays the drums and she has like this kind of fake feud with Dave Grohl? Have you seen this?
No, I heard about it. I need to see it, and
She's
we need to
amazing,
have
but
David
her name is
Grohl.
Nandi.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so like yeah,
Oh, maybe that's why she's
yeah,
David Grohl. If you are watching, we would love to have you on Useful Idiots. And I
yeah,
just think that he and Matt Taibbi probably are mutual fans. I just have this weird sixth
totally. I mean,
sense.
Matt Taibbi is a total Gen Xer,
Mm-hmm.
and Dave Grohl is like Gen X hero.
Yeah.
Like Matt Taibbi couldn't be more Gen X in all the best ways. Like I mean that as
A
like he's the
compliment.
best. Yeah, he's the best version of like Gen X in that he's like, you know,
An exceptional.
I don't know how to explain it. I just know the type,
Right.
and he's very much that. He just like hates millennials, for good reason.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like I can tell he hates millennials. He thinks they're stupid and
As he should. You're a
yeah.
millennial, right, Nando? Nandi?
Yeah. I guess me and you are on the cusp, right,
I'm
Katie?
older than you.
I know you're older than me, but
You're
we're
on the
on.
I'm on the cusp. You're full-fledged millennial, I
Am
think.
I
Yeah.
1985?
Yeah. You
When did
just
it
told my
start? 81 kind
age.
of thing.
I'm gonna say potentially that's the cutoff. Not that I would know. Anyway, but we I'm really excited. Welcome to the Katie Halper Show. So excited. Just doing our formal welcome. And we're about to bring on our first guest. Really excited to have this woman back on. If she gives me the thumbs up, 1 thumb up, 2 thumbs up, an okay thing. Once she does that, I'll bring her on. So I'll leave you in suspense for a little bit. People are wishing that Aaron Mate and I were a couple, which is funny in ways that
they would never understand.
Yeah, you'd never know.
They also want me, you, and Aaron to have a thruple.
A thruple.
A thruple.
We've been have we ever hung out, the three of us?
No, I've never met Aaron Mate.
Oh, well, you got to do it next time you're in.
I very much respect him. He's very much kind of fighting, doing the
Lord's
work
is.
like that I don't want to do. You know, he's doing that kind of thing where it's like I'm glad he's doing it so that I don't have to do it. You know.
Yes. By the way, fetish magic, zodiac info. I'm a Cancer. What are you, Nando?
Libra.
Okay, so tell me who my sign is.
Like Cardi. B. I have the same birthday as Cardi B.
Oh, I think I knew that. You're September. Wait, when's your birthday?
October 11th.
Oh, wait. Have we talked about this?
I don't know.
How many months between July and October?
3 months.
We are 3 months apart and a couple of years. I'm July 11th.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. I'm 7/11. And here's what's weird. Ready? My cousin, I have 2 older cousins. My older of the 2, April 11th. Her younger sister, May 11th. And then me, July 11th.
I have 2 cousins who are born on the same day, but are not twins. But they're brother and sister. They're brother and sister, born on the same day and not twins. Think about that.
How many years apart?
2 years apart. Same
You
day,
must have very methodical aunt and
they
uncle.
bang 1 time a year. Yeah.
And very regular.
Yeah.
Your aunt's good cycle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I'm Libra. Me, AOC. AOC's a Libra.
Nice. I'm Cancerian. You know who else is Cancerian? Who do you think? Who's a guest who would use the word Cancerian? A guess of mine. And would know all the stuff about it. Marianne Williamson.
There you go.
Okay. Now
she.
Cancerian. We're both Cancerian.
Oh, there you go.
Both Cancers, yeah. So, speaking of phenomenal women, we're going to bring in our first guest. I've had her on the show before on the podcast. I interviewed her at the People Summit. Really great, progressive, Paula Jean Swearengin, and she is running for the Senate in West Virginia. Hi.
Hi, everyone. How you doing?
Good,
Paula
you?
Jean, I gotta ask. I'm sure you get this all the time. Are you related to Al Swearengin of Deadwood fame?
Actually, it's my ex-husband's name. My maiden name is Foley, but nobody's related.
Nobody's related. Okay, that's good. Well, it's good you wouldn't want to be related to an ex-husband.
No, that'd be weird.
Good, yeah. Paula Jean, would you mind? Can you lower your mic a teeny bit? I just want to make sure that are we all basically the same level? Because I can hear you and Nando. I can't hear myself and Nando. But if there's anything that tell me how it sounds, everyone. Nando, how do Paula and I sound compared to each other?
Great.
Similar volume with
Is everything okay?
Ooh,
she's
a little louder.
Yeah. Can you lower it a little bit?
Let me look here.
All right.
I don't know how to lower it, guys.
All right, that's okay.
That's okay.
I'll raise mine and Nando can raise his or something. Let me raise mine. Is that better? Just because it's not on.
Let me move mine down a little too.
Oh, okay, great. You got a lav.
There you go.
How's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Awesome. So thank you so much for joining us. And tell us what you are up to. Congratulations on winning your primary. Tell us how that happened and what that felt like.
Well, the campaign's up to a lot. I'm really proud of the team that we have. Winning our primary, if you told me 15 years ago that I'd be the Democratic nominee for United States Senate, I'd probably laughed at you. But, I've evolved throughout the years as a mom and activist to get to this point. And it's just because it's necessary. No matter how much we protest or, I've spoke to the United Nations, I've lobbied, I've done everything that I could for clean water, clean air, and economic diversity in our state. It went on deaf ears. And that's why I ended up running for office. We see all kinds of candidates, locally here in West Virginia and across the country, running for office, because it's important. We need a government of the people, by the people, for the people, and not people in Congress that are working on bipartisan efforts to serve their corporations and lobbyists is what it boils down to. But our campaign, when people say, oh gosh, you're going against a lot of dark money, how are you going to raise money? I can say I'm really humbly and incredibly proud. We've had so many people to endorse and step up, and so many West Virginians that, have had to leave the state because there are no job opportunities to donate and volunteer for the campaign. We have raised over $1 million. The average donation has been $26.30. And we
Bernie level.
almost outraised my opponent last quarter, who has over $3 million in her campaign coffers and less than 2% in individual donations. And I just can't thank everybody enough that has been so supportive. We sent over 80,000 texts last week. We have a comprehensive digital marketing team. We have over 12 people on staff. Most of our staff and volunteers are West Virginians. And my campaign manager, he's in an adjoining county from mine in the coal fields. I'm from Wyoming County. He lives in Logan County. He's a black hat coal miner and a trucker. And we're stigmatized, especially in the coal fields, that we don't have no teeth, no shoes, and no brains. And I'm absolutely beyond proud of my team, because we've showed face and said we do have teeth, shoes, and brains. Yeah. And we have a good solid chance of flipping this seat, especially when you look at the dynamic of what's going on in West Virginia. We have more Democrats and Republicans registered. Democrats and independents than Republicans. But it's not really about partisan politics. It's about people surviving and having true representation for the change. We've had so many Republicans come into the fold. We've even had like the Dominion Post. They are a paper in Mon County, West Virginia, and they are very conservative. And they not only endorse this campaign, but they've really come out for the campaign, because West Virginians want the same things. They want economic diversity. We want long-term solutions to the addiction epidemic. We want health care. We want something as basic as a clean glass of water. We want adequate sewage systems. We want comprehensive broadband. We hear my opponent, Shelley Moore Capito, talking about Capito Connect. She's been in the Senate for 5.5 years, and it really shows how disconnected she is. She's wanting to sell us out to the highest bidder like she always has and privatize it, when we've seen state and federal funding go into broadband, and it's never been implemented because a lot of these companies have spent the money out of state. And so we have people working on legislation to make sure that we do have federal and state legislation that would privatize it, because it ties into our infrastructure, our educational system, our communications, so many things. So many things that are needed here in West Virginia. It's one of the sickest and poorest states in the nation. But, West Virginia has really rose up. I think that we've been underestimated. This is the heart of labor. We have the blood of our ancestors in our veins. Mother Jones, Joe Hill, the mothers of Blair Mountain, Mate One. We seen it in 2018 during the teacher strike, when we led the teacher strike across the country. Nobody talked about party affiliation. Nobody was working on bipartisan efforts to serve corporations and lobbyists. West Virginians stood up together. And we've seen it this time in the 2020 election. We led the charge in 2018, but we really led the charge here in 2020. We had 93 candidates on a slate called the West Virginia Can't Wait slate that swore off corporate PAC dollars. 43 of those candidates won their primaries, ordinary West Virginians, and it's exciting because it's ever since women have been voting for 100 years, West Virginia made history with this primary. Every Democratic nominee, 1st Congressional District, the 2nd, the 3rd, United States Senate, we are all women, we're all progressive, and none of us take corporate and corporate PAC dollars. My opponent was the first woman to be elected to the United States Senate to represent the state of West Virginia. She's a mother and grandmother, and people underestimate how united West Virginians are. I've worked for so many issues across the state. Like in Hayden City, they're dealing with a water crisis. And it was mothers leading the charge in Hayden City. It wasn't, Democrat or Republican. It was women setting to get, working together. And I worked with those women. Some of them were Republican. One thing you don't do in Appalachia is mess with our young, because women are going to come out of the belly of beasts kicking and screaming. And now we have 4 women that are ready to bust the halls of Congress wide open and making sure that West Virginia and every child across the country has a fighting chance. And we have a seat at the table in Washington, D.C.
So I just want to, but before I ask you about your policies, which I'm very curious about, and your positions, it's so interesting that like when you mentioned, we have our teeth. It's so disturbing that people just openly make jokes about class and health that way, in a way that they, I'm not saying, you do have your teeth. There are people who have their teeth. There are people who don't have their teeth. But this kind of like mockery and stigmatization of people if they don't have the perfect teeth, wherever they are, but like the idea that that's something that people should be looked down upon, as opposed to something that we should be ashamed of as a problem in this country.
Well, divide and conquer is an age-old strategy. If we have health care, then we can fix our teeth. So, and that's just the thing. It's to keep us divided and keep us downtrodden. And West Virginians, we're called racist and red, and we're probably the most hospitable people in the world.
Yeah.
We have, like I said, more Democrats and independents registered in the state, but I know a lot of people that are Republicans, and we don't have to agree on everything. But most West Virginians that I know, we believe in a moral compass of treating people respectfully and equally. And also, we take care of each other. We've always taken care of each other. And we are some of the most hospitable people in the world. But, you can talk about people in other states when you're not really there. And, we hear from the media. If the media comes into West Virginia, they try to pick the worst person to amplify, just to make us look bad. And that's just not the case. West Virginians are some of the most beautiful people I've ever met.
And can you tell us what it was like? You are the daughter of a coal miner, the niece of a coal miner, the stepdaughter of a coal miner, and the granddaughter of a coal miner. What how that informed your politics and your view of the world, and shaped your campaign?
Well, I'm a proud coal miner's daughter, but because I am, most of my family's been worked in the industry. I've been more funerals than I have family reunions. The Industrial Revolution was built on the backs of Appalachians, their families, and surrounding communities. And when people turn on their light switch, it's because of the blood of Appalachians. And when I was a little girl, I drank acid mine drainage. Our water was blue with a purple film, had specks of metal in it. Until my stepdad got laid off in the coal mines and we moved to North Carolina for a while, I didn't know I wasn't a redhead until I was 12 years old and had access to clean water. Wow. And we came back home to help take care of my grandfather, and I found out people still didn't have access to clean water. With the boom and the bust of the market, I know what it's like to go hungry when the market for coal is down. And we still hear it as a political talking point, but coal's been declining since the 70s. And one of the coolest lies that any politician can tell that is coal is going to rebound. It's not going to happen for us anymore. There's too many competing markets. We had over 140,000 coal miners in the 70s. We have less than 50,000 nationwide. It's on its way out, and there's no just transition. And that's why I got in this fight, because I've seen, not only did this industry come in here and get rich off our backs and pull the rug out from underneath us, but they had no care for miner safety. With the Upper Big Branch mining disaster, everybody was saying it's going to happen. And those men didn't walk out because they knew it was going to happen. There was no ventilation in that mine. But when you worry about where your next meal is going to come from anyway, and if you speak out and you're going to be blacklisted, you're going to do everything to protect your job. I know as a mother, I cut off my legs for my children and grandchildren, so I get it. But our representatives let it happen. And they let them destroy our water and destroy our air. And we hear jobs, jobs, jobs. But we don't hear any talk about a plan B for anybody in Appalachia. It's still just this political pandering, all these empty promises, and they're never fulfilled. And people in the southern coal fields, they're living in impoverished conditions comparable to a third world country. I know people that have cardboard for windows. Even out in the northern panhandle, with Weirton Steel, with the decline in coal, the steel market is down and Weirton is going bankrupt, and those people are struggling. And people are struggling all across the state. And there's nobody doing anything about it. And that's why you see an uprising in Appalachia and West Virginia, because we're sick and tired of being collateral damage. And we need to get back to the intent of this country, of the people, by the people, for the people, and create a government that actually serves the people. We don't have to agree on everything. And if we hang on to the two-party system, we need to make sure that people are making sincere efforts to be public servants and making decisions for the people that they are supposed to serve, instead of corporations and lobbyists. And if these people are not going to do their jobs, they need to know we're going to hold them accountable, and we're going to come after their jobs, because we can't go, West Virginia can't go through this much longer. We don't have a plan B. People are dying and starving here, but it's also happening across the country. And people are seeing that our government is not serving us anymore, and we have to do something about it.
Can you clarify what you meant about the red hair comment?
Well, my hair was orange. It was red. It was dyed red from our water. And until I had access to clean water, I didn't realize I was a brunette.
That's really, wow.
Yeah. And the way a lot of Democrats and liberals speak about coal mining in West Virginia is often in a way that's like very denigrating, and understanding that obviously because of climate change we need to transition away from fossil fuels. If you were kind of the head of the Democratic Party, how should the Democratic Party speak about that issue specifically? Because it's one that it just is so top of mind to a lot of people, but the way they kind of speak to it is often I find counterproductive.
Well, we, as much as the people in Appalachia have paid the price for when you turn on your light switch, like I said, it's because of the blood Appalachians that we fueled this country. Mm-hmm. And we have gotten to the point in Appalachia, we're not asking, we're demanding that we have economic diversity, and we have federal funding to go into states like ours so we can diversify our economy. There's so many things that you can do. We can invest in renewables. If we legalized and decriminalized cannabis, which we know it's just a matter of time that it's going to happen on a federal level, and absolutely I'd stand behind that, but I hope states in Appalachia get behind it, because we would see economic growth within 6 to 8 months. There's a lot of potential for geothermal. I know specifically in West Virginia, we have a lot of hot spots here. This is the birthplace of rivers. We have a lot of dams. There's a lot of potential for hydropower. If we had comprehensive broadband, which my opponent always talks about, she wants to privatize it and sell us off to the highest bidder. And we've seen that doesn't work. We've seen companies get state and federal funding and end up spending that money out of state. Capito Connect, it really shows how disconnected my opponent is. It should be a public utility. It ties into, our economic development, our infrastructure, as well as communication and as well as education. We were already advancing into digital learning, and during this pandemic, while they're taking this push and pushing our children back into school, the most vulnerable children are going to be pushed into unsafe unsafe conditions, as well as our educators and our school service personnel. Because for one, I don't know a lot of Appalachians that can afford broadband if they had it. And we've created these hotspots across the state where they can download, the things that they need on their iPads. It's going to be cold soon. We don't have rural transportation in a lot of these areas, especially where they're plagued with the addiction epidemic and food deserts. And so what is going to happen is we're going to push those children back into unsafe conditions just because they're poor and they have a lot of things going on at home. If we have good roads, good schools, good bridges, adequate sewage systems, et cetera, we can invite business to Appalachia, and businesses will want to come here. But if we're not even, our most valuable resources are people first and foremost. But people are not going to want to settle here if they don't have access to broadband. Sewage is running into the rivers and streams. And if, we don't have access to clean water and clean air, they do not want to move into communities when we're dealing with one of the largest addiction epidemics in the country. It's just the possibilities are endless, but we need people that are going to be visionaries for our future instead of visionaries for our demise. And, first and foremost, we hear about all these bipartisan efforts, but it's bipartisan efforts to cater to corporations and lobbyists instead of, taking care of the most vulnerable in our society. And this state has been proven to be very vulnerable with COVID. We rank one of the top. We have a large population of elderly. We have a lot of sick folks with black lung, the addiction epidemic, cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, et cetera, et cetera. And, my opponent, she's voted against equal pay for women at least 3 times. She tried to turn Medicare into a voucher program. She says Medicare for all is Medicare for none. And I'd like for her to explain, because that makes no sense, because she's still catering to, private insurance companies. There's just so many things, and the writing is there on the wall. And West Virginians are beginning to see that we are in the fight for our lives. And people across the country have invested so much in these campaigns. And it's up to us now to vote in people that will actually serve us. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I love West Virginia. I love to be home. I want normalcy. I fought for years for normalcy, but I'm in this fight for my children and grandchildren and every child in Appalachia and in this country. This country girl does not want to go to D.C. And if I'm going to have to go there for 6 years, I'm going to rake 6 tons of hell while I'm there. And I'm going to be working when I come back home, because this is about survival for us.
And you, so what is the transition for coal miners that you envision and that you're going to help fight for?
Well, there's no transition now. There's no just transition. People are getting laid off every day. When we talk about economic diversity, if we invest into the Reclaim Act, we don't take things from the, abandoned mine land fund, just like the miners' health care and pensions. It's like my opponent painted herself as a champion to get miners' health care and pension. And what it was one of the biggest anti-union tactics that I think West Virginia's ever seen. We've seen the industry file bankruptcy, give them, give the top, their CEOs large bonuses, open up non-union mines, and then tap into the abandoned mine land funds and pay for the miners' health care and pensions, when that was supposed to restructure, create job development, and create regrowth. And they did not hold the industry accountable at all. We need people that are going to make these people pay their damn bills instead of giving them bailouts. And that's basically what happened. And they busted 0 union coal mines in West Virginia now. And, my opponent's not a champion for that. That was one yes vote. And she's for right to work. She wants to close the doors on the union hall. And we have to make sure that the backs of the unions are back into the backs of the workers, and where, workers can form unions and have the right to collectively bargain for things that impact their lives day to day, and they can be safe and they can make a living wage. There's just, all these things are so systemic and they're simplistic, and it's not rocket science, but we just have to make sure that we have people that are actually invested and making sure that people are taken care of. This is one of the richest countries in the world. We do not have a budgeting problem. We have a moral problem that creates a budgeting problem.
Yeah, that's very well put. That's true. And everyone always thinks it's the other way around, right? Like, oh, we would love to. What do you, look, I love that idea as much as you do. We just don't have the money. And that's so important. And actually, I think that's something that, I know that one of the things that really put you on the map, in terms of optics, I guess, was this really beautiful moment that you and Senator Bernie Sanders shared. I bring him up because he's someone who really wonderfully has made that argument, right? No, it's not about it's not impossible what we're asking for, right? We are demanding something that's very doable, and we just need to demand it because it's the right thing and it's the doable thing. And the billionaires have told us for so long that we can't have it, but it's just because they want to keep the money. Can you just tell people about that interaction that you had with Senator Sanders and how that, I don't know, affected you and other people?
Well, I was just doing what I always done, you know, and I seen this little old man. The first time I seen him was 2016, and he had a rally in Charleston, and he was talking about things that nobody would ever talk about. And I found out he was showing up at food banks in poor counties like McDowell County, and I'm like, wow, a presidential candidate is showing up at a food bank in the middle of nowhere. And I was writing op-eds to national media, and Diane Seamus with the Chris Haynes show said, I don't know if we can get you on a panel, but Bernie Sanders is coming up. You know, would you like to come and possibly speak? Well, I didn't get on the panel, but, you know, me being the honored Appalachian woman, I'm like, I am not leaving this space until I talk to this guy. So I walked up to him and I'm like, Senator Sanders, I'm Paula Swearengin, blah, blah, blah. Can I have 2 minutes of your time? So I followed him from the front of the room to the back of the room, back to the front of the room, with him signing autographs and everybody giving him hugs and media trying to talk to him. And the amazing thing was, he threw his hands up and he said, stop. I told this woman that I would talk to her. And then it moved into me crying like a baby because, one, you know, most of the time, especially like with my incumbent, you have to get arrested in her office to be heard, or people are flying paper airplanes demanding health care over the top of her door because she's so inaccessible. And here was the senator of Vermont that didn't have to carry about West Virginia. We're not a swing state. He was just here because he cared. And I loved about him was also when he wasn't running for president, he was still back at food banks. He was still standing shoulder to shoulder with us. And, you know, we've seen this change in this political dynamic across the country where ordinary people were standing up. And he was saying, I can't do this forever. I'm not a hero. Y'all need to do something for yourself. And I'm like, he's right. We have to start building this movement and continuing with this movement. I was already an activist. I'd done everything that I knew possible. But, you know, the next step is he's right. If your government doesn't serve you, become the government that you want. And the government should be us. The people in front of the pain should be in front of the power. And I cannot thank Senator Sanders enough for being the figurehead of that. But we need to listen to him too. It is us. His slogan is not me, us. And if we are going to see change, not even only, you know, volunteering, donating, voting in these races, but thinking moving forward, it's long term. One person can't be a hero. Government 101, legislation, even if it's introduced, is not going to pass without votes. So long term, we have to keep on building these strategies from a local level to a federal level, putting people in place that are actually going to take care of us. And I've said it once, I'll say it again, who better to serve us than us? We solve the problems in the front lines of our communities every day. We work hard to bring change while these people are out of touch. My opponent, I don't think she's ever had a job outside of running for office. She's there because of the corrupt legacy of her father. She's never wondered where her next meal would come from. She's never had to balance a paycheck. How could she even be in touch on what our struggles are? She's never had to struggle. And that's what's important to me if I do go to Congress. I want to make sure that everybody that has been working in the front lines of our communities have a seat at the table. And I'm going to welcome people in West Virginia and across the country to meet with me and help write legislation that impacts our daily lives. These people can say all day long how they're going to be our saviors, but how are they going to save anything if they don't even know what we need to be saved from? And they keep on working for people that don't care if we live or die.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, yeah. This has been great. We'd love to have you back on. Anything else you want to make sure that we
Absolutely,
cover?
yeah.
I know that you are very busy, so I really appreciate your time.
Oh, you're welcome. If anybody wants to know about the campaign, it's paulagene.com. And of course, we on Facebook and Twitter, we're Paula Jean 2020. And if anybody needs anything from me, feel free to reach out. You don't have to get arrested in my office to talk to me. This is a federal office, so it don't only impact West Virginia, it impacts everybody across the country. So I always welcome feedback and improvements we can make in the campaign and moving forward as a representative. I know I need to know what I need to do, but it's go time. We have to phone bank and we have to get these people, get people like myself elected. Go to brandnewcongress.org, look at everybody that went through their primary. They have vetted these candidates. None of them are taking corporate PAC dollars. We know that these people are going to be true people servants. Cori Bush, she's a leader in Ferguson. She used to be homeless. I cannot wait to see her on the House floor and see what good she does. But people like her and myself, we can't do it alone. So look at these other races too, so we can build a brand new Congress.
Yeah, and Cori Bush, spoiler alert, I'm having her on again next week. She'll be coming on, not live, but I'll play the interview live. And thank you so much. And come back on before sometime soon. Let's definitely have you on again.
Thank y'all so much. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. You too.
Bye.
Bye. Very moving, right?
Very moving, unbelievably moving, and it's hard to overstate just how important it would be for a sort of Bernie-crat like Paula Jean to flip a red district. I mean, West Virginia was not, I think most people think of West Virginia as like this like hopelessly Republican state, but it was like Democratic dominated from like 1930 to like not that long ago, like 2014. They had like a Democratic governor in like the 90s, and it's not like this hopelessly Republican state. Like it's something that can be flipped back if the right kind of people were activated, and it's just like the history of West Virginia is kind of like she mentioned it, the birthplace of organized labor, the Battle of Blair Mountain, all that history is kind of like, oh, it's too low. Am I too low?
Yeah, I told you. Yeah.
What about now? I keep trying. Is it
okay? That's better. That's better.
Yeah, better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. How about now?
Good. That's good.
Too loud?
No, I don't know. You guys tell me compared to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's just like that history has been completely like erased from the history books. Like no one learns about it ever.
As Brian Frederick just pointed out, West Virginia voted for Dukakis.
There you go. Yeah, one of the few states like that was like
Nebish, that guy.
That was a Democratic stronghold forever, and it was like one that the Democratic Party abandoned once they abandoned kind of the organized labor movement, because that was the heart of West Virginia for so long. So, if that could be flipped back, that could be like a real kind of change for the rest of the country.
Very true.
What are you laughing?
I'm laughing because our guest. Can you see the person, or you can't see it because you're not the host?
I can't see shit.
All right, I'm gonna bring in our next guest. I don't know if I can say what he was doing. Nothing illicit, nothing inappropriate.
Was he just doing like a jack off motion?
No, actually, he wasn't. But that's funny. It wasn't that. It involved. Now you say that, it almost an S&M thing. Not really. There was how would you describe the thing that you were using? It was
I have muscle spasms in my back, so I'm using this back massager, and I was doing what the Sandman at the Apollo does.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. That's
and at Univision when I used to work
the other
at
way.
Univision,
You have to do it the other way. You have to move the other way. Keep it on the same side of your neck.
Right. There you go. You should be a mime.
Yeah, you should be a mime. Yeah. That's actually pretty good. How's that?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
No one knows this.
Mimes.
A lot of people want to what?
Punch mimes.
Is that true?
Is that a thing?
Heard about
is that like
fantasizing about punching mimes?
You've had that fantasy, or are people you know?
Well, I guess the thing with punching mimes is you wonder whether they'll scream or not. Like they could just be like,
oh yeah, you're right. That's what kind of person doesn't punches someone for out of that curiosity, though.
I for the first time wanted to commit elder abuse today because I was on Capitol Hill walking around, and it's like this white liberal ghetto where everyone has signs on their lawn that say, "We believe in science. We respect everybody. We, believe in Fauci. Fauci, God." And I walked up to the Supreme Court, and there was this long line of people, like it was like, like you used to see Soviet bread lines or whatever, but they were waiting to see RBG, and everyone had signs in their houses like "Rest in Power." RBG, human rights defender, and everyone.
Did you cry when you found out she died?
I didn't. I cried that she didn't retire in like 2012. 2013, because that would have been like a wise thing to do. But anyway, everybody up there like wears masks outdoors, and I'm all for wearing masks indoors where it actually matters. And some of them wear masks that don't actually do anything, like they wear scarves, which have shown in studies to actually break up molecules and make community spread easier.
Wow.
Nice.
Where that it's kind of like a sign of their liberalism, I guess. It's like they're and I always suspected that it was political, just the way like the Trump people don't wear masks anywhere, and then they go and like get like 500 people in a tiny swimming pool in Branson, Missouri, and like crank Keith Urban or whatever just to show their culture or subsequent lack thereof. But like this old woman saw me walking down the street without my mask, like far away from anyone. I'm not trying to infect anyone with my COVID. And she like hides behind a barrier, first of all, and stares at me like with this hateful look. And as I walk by 10 feet away from her, she turns around and starts kind of
a sadist.
She said, "You're voting for Trump, aren't you?"
You're not wearing a mask?
Because I wasn't wearing a mask. She's like, "You're voting for Trump." Because like no one else will walk around outside. I mean, I live in Ward 8 in DC. It's, I'm like one of the few white people here, and people wear masks in stores, but they don't have that neurotic mentality. There's just something really insane going on up there. And I really I felt angry, actually.
Yeah. Everything gets subsumed. Everything in America gets subsumed in the culture war, whether it's a random ass Netflix movie like the Cuties thing or wearing a mask.
Did you?
Was it good? Did you get arrested for child pornography?
I found it very erotic.
Really?
I mean, I didn't actually gain any sexual satisfaction from it, but it was an erotic film.
Oh, you're okay. I see what you're saying.
If you are sexually attracted to tweens or children who are not ready yet to have sex, you will love this film. I'm just saying,
like I should watch it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like really. I mean, I think they just did that to like market the film, but like,
yeah,
it's something that people who want to commit sex crimes against children would enjoy. But I'm not saying that it should be banned or like the parents of the children should be in prison. And it's like a real thing that goes on that like I've seen where like kids like want to twerk and work the pole and shit. But that was my impression of the film.
It's a film, not a show.
Yeah, well,
it's a movie. You didn't see this controversy, Katie?
No, I did, but I didn't know. I was going to get to it later. I just didn't know if it was
I jumped the gun.
I didn't know if it was about a show or a film. It's a Netflix thing, right?
Movie. Netflix movie.
Yeah, at first I thought it was a documentary. I was like, yeah, that stuff does happen, and there's like crisis of children being getting indoctrinated into a really trashy culture through social media. But then it was just like they just straight up made a film and like dramatized scenes with like, and it was like like a Cardi B video with 11-year-olds in it.
Yeah. Oh wow.
But I'm not in favor of banning it. It's like what Louis C.K. says about abortion. He's like, it's killing a baby, but women should be allowed to do it.
But you don't think it's that about abortion? You're just saying your position on that is you are like a progressive Catholic. You are like a Cuomo or a Kerry or a Kennedy. I'm not for abortion. I'm for women's You're pro-choice,
right to control their bodies. But
It is a very stupid slogan, my body, my choice, because if you think that's murder, it doesn't matter. But whatever, that's another conversation. But it is true. It is true.
I don't know. I thought Louis C.K. kind of like had a more wise way of approaching it. It's like, okay, like it is kind of like killing a living thing, but you can't stop people from doing it because it's in their body.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think that like the my body, my choice thing. Obviously, if you this is why like people who are anti-choice all the way, I mean, there may be sociopaths, but they're consistent. Like obviously the zygote or the fetus is not actually, if you believe in exceptions, then you acknowledge on some level that the zygote, fetus, anything in between those things is not like a human being. Because you wouldn't be like, all right, I'll give you an exception if you want to kill this human being outside.
I'm just saying, like some stuff can be really messed up, but it should still be legal because
sure, harm reduction argument.
Well, I don't know what people. I mean, people were getting super outraged about the film, and I saw some poll that said, I don't know the poll. I saw a poll, POLL.
Yeah.
And it showed that 70% of the people who watched the film on Netflix did so because they'd heard about it through the controversy. I mean, otherwise, It's like a French art film. How many French art films are Americans going to really watch? Except for that stupid film like Amélie, because the girl had such a nice smile. And
that movie was so not that good. I love French films, but that wasn't a great one.
She has a great smile, though. I can't do it because I'm not like cute. But anyway, so I saw Cutie.
You're very cute.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't fall for
My
that.
My mother would agree.
Yeah.
So, it's an honor to come on after someone.
Swearengin.
Yeah.
Who had red hair like you, but she had it because she drank poisoned water. I consider you a redhead. Do people not consider you a redhead?
Well, it's turning silver now, but
silver haired.
Yeah, because I drank poisoned water, so it's turning silver.
Yeah, Max
My skin is turning red.
Your skin? That's really problematic, Max. Are you Elizabeth Warrening out on us? Terrible. I was so upset that Biden didn't name a woman of color as his VP and go with Warren.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Put Jessica Krug on his cabinet.
Oh, my God. I mean, I'm just going to say it. I've said this before. Jessica Krug just reaffirms how much I like Rachel Dolezal. Because it's a very good contrast. Because Dolezal actually was very productive. And when she stepped down from the NAACP, there was,
I got my friend for his birthday. I got him a Rachel Dolezal cameo, and because she's on Cameo, and she was amazing. She did such a good job. She's the best.
What'd she say?
Well, I wrote out a script, and I was like, because he was born on September 13th, which is the same day Tupac died. And I told her, I was like, hey, can you say like happy birthday? I know it's a hard day because it's the anniversary of Tupac's death, but you can do it, like power through. And she said it. She said everything. She was great. So yeah, highly recommend Cameo.
It's only like $30, right?
It was like $30. Yeah.
Does it depend on who the person is?
Yeah. Some people are like more expensive. Like I got my friend Jay Peterman from Seinfeld. And he was amazing, but he was a little bit more expensive.
Yeah. Can I go on there?
No, we're not famous enough.
You're not worth anything.
I can't believe you guys would both say that. How do you know what the threshold is?
You have to do something like to make you a camp figure.
Yeah. Like I got my friend Buster Douglas. He was very cheap.
How do you know? Can you apply? I want to apply.
Maybe you can apply.
My name recognition is not.
How do you know? There's a whole niche. There are people
Buster
on the
Douglas
left.
knocked Mike Tyson out. I mean, I haven't achieved anything on that level.
Biggest sports upset ever.
Yeah, have you never gotten to a physical altercation, Max? Like
with the Venezuelan, the Venezuelans.
Oh, you got arrested.
Yeah, the Venezuelan oligarchs.
I beat a 59-year-old pregnant woman to death and killed her triplets.
Oh my God, I forgot that.
Yeah, well, that was
Wait,
basically
did
what
she
I was
actually
thinking.
pretended to be?
I beat her along with 3 masked men within an inch of her life.
Wait,
And
did she actually claim to be pregnant?
I was accused of that by like blue check mark neocons. They're like, you don't understand what he did to this woman. He beat her. He beat a pregnant woman.
Wait, I gotta show a
escalating. It was
picture.
like, I didn't just beat an old woman. I beat an old pregnant woman. Like she's more fertile than Sarah Palin. It was like,
They kept heightening it.
yeah, I mean, though they just want me jailed so bad that they just couldn't accept that slamming repeatedly an old woman into a wall until she was almost like in a coma with Alexei Navalny, like that.
Do you have the image of her or the video?
What's that?
Do you have the video of her when she's like in the hospital?
Oh yeah, that was beautiful. She's like in the hospital.
Where is that? I want to show people.
Like, I don't know. There's so much hilarious video. I actually saw a video that we got through Discovery as like before they dropped the charges against me, and the video showed her trying to report to police what had happened, and she's faking a limp on her right leg, and then I watched the video from an hour later, and she's faking a limp on her left leg. I'm like, just pick a leg, lady. And
yeah, pick a leg, pick a lane, pick a narrative.
Stay in your leg. Yeah.
Wait, where is she? I really want to show people the video. What was her name?
What the hell was her name? She had one of those stupid names. Like, what the hell?
Well, oh my God, it was so funny.
Hold on.
All right.
Hold on. I'll get her name.
Oh my God, yeah. I remember.
What was the name of that fucking Venezuelan lady who accused me of beating her?
Violet? Violet or Iolet?
Nihilet Pacheco. Nihilet. It's like a.
That's not a. I've never heard that.
Sounds like a biological term for like part of the fetus or something. The nihilet develops after 8 weeks.
God, we're really on the abortion. Oh, here it is. All right. Chronicle of an Attack Foretold. Hold on.
Is a Garcia Marquez reference?
I mean,
oh yeah. Hold on, let's check. Yeah.
That's a Garcia Marquez reference. Yeah.
I know, it's amazing. Hold on one second. Chronicle of an Attack Foretold. All right. What is it? What is the book? A murder foretold? I can't remember what it is.
A murder chronicle. It's in Spanish. It's Crónica de una muerte anunciada. So it's like a chronicle of a death foretold.
Right, a death. Yeah. Okay, hold on. Let's watch this. Why is she wearing like a shower cap? Okay.
I mean, she wasted the hospital's resources to just make up this whole story.
And this is from Ask a Venezuelan. That's what the YouTube account is. Okay. Oops, wait, hold on. Look at her like getting into character.
Clearly, like brutalized. Oh man, this is like.
And this was, by the way, sorry, just to clarify, Max was sent to serve some time. He was accused of like a hate crime against a Venezuelan exile.
I mean, I did 2 days in a jail, and jail, like prison is where you do like hard time.
Sorry, jail 2 days in jail. Yeah.
You're waiting for your court date, and it's actually worse than many prisons because you're packed in there with like hundreds of guys. You're shackled for a large part of it. Like I was shackled from my hands with a chain around my waist to my ankles, and there are all kinds of transportation situations where you're packed in a van with like 10 dudes, and like I was stuck in a cell for like 30 hours with another guy with sharing one toilet, and it was just, and it was bad, but it was all based on this lady's lie, and the warrant was executed 5 months after she made up this lie about me. And basically, if you look at what's happening right now, where activists involved across the country in these protests against police brutality are getting picked up at their houses, particularly in Denver, in the movement to seek prosecutions of the cops who murdered 23-year-old Elijah McClain, which is, I think, actually doesn't get enough attention. It's just such a clear-cut, heinous murder.
I know. We talked about it with Eugene Puryear on Sunday.
Okay, cool. Filled everybody in. Well, I mean, they've been in jail for 7 days now after being accused of kidnapping because they, for 7 hours, held a sit-in outside a police station, like a nonviolent sit-in. And these are retaliatory arrests. That's what happened with me. It was a federal case. The indictment of me said U.S. versus Max Blumenthal. And they used the local police to like round me up SWAT style and like come to my house on Friday morning. And they're like, don't worry, bro. And they tell you all these lies to like get you to calm down about the whole thing. They're like, don't worry, bro. You're going to be out by dinner time. We just need to take you down to the courthouse. And then the next thing you know, you're like driving around in a paddy. Well, I'm not supposed to say paddy wagon because it's anti-Irish, but you know,
a Mick wagon. Sorry,
smash that woke button, Katie.
A Mick wagon. You're in a Mick wagon.
Mick wagon, Irish car bomb. Yeah, you can't drink any more of those.
Okay, so I was in a Jew wagon.
Yeah, that would be great. Remember when Mel Gibson was like, "You cops, you a bunch of Jews, cops." Like that's such.
There are no Jewish cops in the LAPD.
And what a butch fantasy! It's like Inglourious Bastards. That Jews are cops.
I mean, there should have been less Jews on the Project for a New American Century list, but I don't think we're responsible for all the wars in the world.
No, I don't either. I mean, is that a joke about like the policemen of the world?
Well, Mel Gibson said Jews are responsible for all the wars.
Yeah. Oh, but didn't he also say something? Right. Well, that's a cliche, but didn't he also say something about cops being Jews? That was what was funny when he was. This is when he got arrested. Yeah. I think he thought he's accused the cop of being a Jew.
He's making Passion of the Christ too. He's back, baby. He's making the sequel.
The lawyers.
Right. We're not the cops or the lawyers. Right.
Yeah.
The accountants.
Anyway, you can play the lady. I mean, she's going to speak in
Spanish. We'll translate it.
Huge amount
I can translate it all.
She changed her story a million times, and there's video of her dancing like the next day, and I have video of her assaulting people hours after she did this.
Well, Nando can do a simultaneous translation. Last week he did Despacito, and this
week we'll do the Venezuelan lady.
Yeah.
Accused Max.
Okay, let's see. Share screen. Chrome. Sorry, I can't. One day I will be able to do this without narrating it. Okay. Let's go. Ready? Be really funny if I played and it was Suavecito. Can you guys hear that?
Morning.
Yeah.
My name is Naile Pacheco. I'm from the Virginia. And I'm so nervous because I can finish my interview in Spanish and English. Perdón, I need to talk in Spanish, please.
Okay.
Yesterday in the morning, okay?
That's not Spanish.
Una cadena humana.
Human chain.
Al COPIN, que ya tienen ya más de casi 15 días nos están atacando. Tenemos la protección del servicio secreto y de la policía.
Wait, stop.
So she was saying that they made a human chain against Code Pink.
Wait. The funny part is she has a very thick Venezuelan accent, but she's like, yeah, we've been doing a human chain for 15 days, and we've enjoyed the protection this whole time of the Secret Service and the armed forces, and it's like, yeah, that's it's normal.
The underdog.
Normal for a protest movement to be protected by the
totally,
Secret
yeah, and against Code Pink is what she's saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sorry.
Pero ellos tratan de amedrentarnos, ellos se tiran arriba a nosotros, ellos son los que nos agreden.
So then she said, but they tried to get through the human chain.
Yeah, get through. They jump on top of us. They assault us. Yeah.
Dicen que somos nosotros la que los agredimos. En una de esas, uno de ellos.
They said it was our fault that we were the aggressors, right? But one of them.
Me dice uno del COPIN, me dice, mira tú, lo mejor que tú puedes hacer es cuidar. Bueno, yo no lo
One of them said, "What you better."
You better the best thing you can do is look out for yourself, basically like a threat, like something bad's happening,
right. Look out. Okay, watch out.
Yeah. Watch your back.
Yeah, watch your back.
Ahora, hoy en la mañana, a las 3 de la mañana, 3 y 5 de la mañana, ellos nos atacaron por frente y por detrás. Venían.
So
a pincer movement says that at 3:05 a.m. we were attacked from the front and from the rear.
Venían cargados con unas bolsas de basura negra que no sabíamos que llevaban en el interior. Y nosotros impidiéndole el paso, ¿verdad? Me empujaron.
So they came with garbage bags.
Yeah, and unknown contents within it. We didn't know
Right.
what was in it, and they you know,
Was
like,
no
they came
charge.
after me essentially.
They what? What you said in here?
Yeah, they
I-
were like, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were like, yeah, like they came with black bags and you know, like we didn't know what was in them, and they tried to like stop us from continuing or whatever.
Me tiraron al piso,
They
me
threw me on the
golpearon
floor.
con la rodilla,
They hit me
uno
with their
me pegó
knee.
la cabeza contra la cerca del pasillo.
Someone curb stomped me.
Bueno, me patearon. ¿Qué te
They
puedo
kicked
decir?
me.
Todo lo que
I can't even say all the things they did to me.
Yeah,
It's
I know.
unspeakable.
Oh,
Unspeakable.
cerca del pasillo. Bueno, me patearon. ¿Qué te
They
puedo
kicked
decir?
me.
Todo lo que me hicieron.
I can't even tell you everything.
A lo
Unspeakable. It's
último,
unspeakable
cuando estaba
things.
regresando, el muchacho se devolvió con una cara de odio hacia mí y me dio una patada.
When I was leaving, the man turned around and looked at me with a face of pure hatred. Hatred in his eyes.
that's a crime.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Watch.
Se devolvió con una cara de odio hacia mí
De odio.
y me dio una patada. Yo todavía en
And
el
kicked me.
piso, y yo
And I was still on the floor.
ahí fue cuando rompió la lámpara del pasillo, que está evidenciada.
So she was already on the floor, and
Yeah.
a man turned around. A boy turned around
With hatred.
with hatred in his face and kicked me. And what? And broke a street lamp,
Yeah, she's saying she broke some sort of lamp, but yeah,
which is
unclear.
evidence.
Yeah.
Y ellos salieron huyendo en un carro con placa de Nueva York. Y son los muchachos del
And they left in an escape vehicle with New York license plates.
Yeah, and they are the boys of Code Pink.
There you
They
go,
are the
dude.
Code Pink people. Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, and then there was right. I forgot. And then someone said that you had been right, that you had attacked a pregnant person.
Yeah,
that-
I mean,
yeah.
it just there were just an array of accounts, and they all kind of had their own variations. And I don't know if they could even. There was no evidence that I had done anything. The evidence that I was there is that there's video of me walking away.
Right.
Because I'd thrown a bag of food down to Kevin Z's, rest in
Oh
power.
yeah, R.I.P. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I that woman,
Nailete.
I wasn't even. I was socially distanced from her, like by a very.
Pre-COVID-19. Well,
Yeah.
Nando, now that we've not to use you like the Spaniard that you
Yeah.
are, the madrileño that
Imperialist.
you are, yeah. We got to kick you out. No, you got to go. You got to give your friend some tips for dating in Venice.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
thank you for your service, sir, and your
Yeah,
translation,
thanks for the
sir.
translation.
Yeah,
No worries.
I did
Later,
a pretty
guys.
good job, right? Didn't I do a
You're-
good job?
Katie's Spanish is like I would say you're like 93%.
Understanding,
fluent.
maybe. Yeah.
No. And your accent is wonderful.
Well, I'm like a 50. Yeah.
No,
Pues,
accent is
Pues,
no, your accent's very
pues,
good.
Vamos.
See,
Okay,
there you go.
Gracias. A ti. Hasta
Hasta luego.
hasta luego. Hasta el viernes.
Adiós.
Okay. Ciao. Thank you for real. That was Nando. I don't think he's stoned. I'm not buzzed, and Max is just a smartass. That is true. Thank you, Jordan Allen. Anyway, so
Does anyone
Guys-
actually watch this?
497 people are watching live now, and many will come later.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. In fact, tweet, guys, everyone pause what they're doing and share this because this is going to be a great chat. Okay. So apparently there's some breaking news, by the way, about
Well, what I've been hearing is a cop was shot in Louisville. Is that the breaking news?
Let's
But
see.
I haven't heard any details on it, and I follow so many like boring people on Twitter that I can't really get. I shouldn't scroll through my timeline because they're talking about like
They're calling you what?
boring election stuff and like whether Trump will agree to concede his
Right.
defeat.
Well, that's all. It's related, you know.
Yes, I guess it's related.
It's the attack on our institutions. And before this, the police were docile and respected rule of law. Then Trump thugged it all up.
Meanwhile, the U.S. is sanctioning politicians and legislators in Venezuela for declaring their intention to participate in legislative elections, which are upcoming there. So the U.S. is financially terrorizing people who want to participate in Venezuela's elections. While, I mean, obviously that's the Trump administration doing it, but it's a bipartisan program of delegitimizing Venezuela's institutions. But this is what the U.S. has been doing abroad, in addition to coups and everything else. So, I mean, it's maybe, chickens coming home to roost.
Yeah.
In any case, I don't know if you have any details about that.
No, I'm trying to look. Does anyone have good? Anyone have any good info about that? I just see on Twitter. Let's see.
Ian Zering, I get that a lot.
Yeah. Who
My
else?
grandfather, when he was alive, I was just sitting there watching TV with him, and 90210 came on, and he said, "Hey, that's that guy. He kind of looks like you, Max. He's a good-looking guy."
That is so funny.
Steve from 90210.
Is that which side of your which grandfather?
My father,
your paternal father, yeah.
Steve went on to a great career as a Chippendales dancer.
Did he really?
Yeah, he did a Chippendales tour like a few years ago.
Max, that could be you, but for COVID, that could have been you.
I'm gonna do a Thunder Down Under when this lockdown's over.
You should do the Southern Cone. The Southern Cone Chippendales. No, the Global South. Sorry, the Global South. That's like what
the Global South, yeah.
That could be either. All right, I like laugh. I anticipate jokes that you haven't even made. Max is like one of the funniest people. It's a little embarrassing. I can't stop laughing. Like you just look serious, and I start laughing. Sorry.
So are we gonna? Yeah. So
no, this is it. This is all performance art, like the what are they called? The mimes that you want to punch. Okay. So yeah, anyone know about any info about this? We can get back to that. We have a lot of other stuff to talk about, but yeah, I guess oh shit, hold on. Post-tropical storm Teddy. Why is this trending? Eric Trump is so scary looking, by the way. There should be a trigger warning. Hold on. Let me just show you. I just went to trending on Twitter. Let me just show you what I was just
Don Jr. is a little creepier.
I don't know. Hold on. Look at this right now. Hold on. Is that not like?
Yeah, it's kind of like.
It's so scary.
Like this necro rodent face.
What if someone is into both of those things? What's a rodent file? Like, that's a real killer combo. Yeah, I mean
between Fievel and Nosferatu.
Fievel-Ratu.
Fievel-Ratu.
He's so gross looking. I can't get over it. Oh my god, look at that. That's okay. This is like kind of like what, like I don't like this guy, but is this like they did this stuff to Bernie? Like, does he actually look like that IRL?
Yeah, he's not getting enough vitamin D. I can
seriously
see that, but he's really like low level in Trump Incorporated. Like he was in charge of his dad's winery or something.
I think I got an email from Eric. Wait, this is Eric, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got an email from Don Jr., I believe, about how they were going to fill that seat. Anyway,
their job is like defending my father. Like you run around the country like my father was insulted and just the biggest loser.
He looks so scary. He does look like Fievel. All right, so we know no officers were charged directly with killing Breonna Taylor, which is absolutely awful.
They're charged with like shooting a bullet into the white neighbors. Well, one is charged with like shooting a bullet into the white neighbor's apartment.
Yeah. What else? Why is it like Harvard University trending? I just want to see what's happening now. College life? I don't need that. Anyway, let's talk about what's happening now. Is there not a breaking news thing in Twitter?
Oh, I'm looking.
Anyway, if not, I mean, we can go back. Here. Police in riot gear are blocking off Barsden Road. There have been several arrests. So it turns out they can arrest someone without waiting 6 months. Oh, I get it.
I mean, I just don't see anything about this officer shot. I saw a bunch of right wingers kind of freaking out about it, which led me to believe they're kind of it's an infection.
Right. All right. Well, we'll get to it later, maybe. All right. So, God, that guy is really good looking. Let me stop screen though. Okay, so let's talk about excuse me. Let's talk about what you just wrote a great piece for the Gray Zone about sorry about that, about us I was gonna say about, I won't even say what I was gonna say, about Assange. Not only about Assange, but rather about the way that Assange was spied on, which we know from this really great piece that you wrote about that. And we had you on a couple months ago. Can't believe how long ago that was. And also the journalists who are covering it. So can you tell us about this investigation?
Well, I've been following closely since, I would say, early spring, when it became kind of like impossible to go out and do reporting, this case in Spain, which I think is one of the most intriguing legal affairs in the world right now. It's taking place under the auspices of Spain's National Court in Madrid, and it relates to a Spanish security firm that appears very clearly to have been contracted by the CIA as soon as Trump was elected by Mike Pompeo's CIA to spy on Julian Assange, carry out a black operations program against him and everyone who was visiting him when he was trapped inside the Ecuadorian embassy in London. And so the CEO of this security firm, he was kind of like a small-time player who wound up being recruited through Las Vegas Sands, which is the company of Sheldon Adelson. Sheldon Adelson is one of the biggest, if not the single biggest donor to the Republican Party and Trump himself. He's donated $50 million this election cycle to Republican Senate candidates.
Someone, by the way, while we're talking, someone should, not kidding, Photoshop a photo of Assange and that Trump guy, Eric, into Chippendales dancers. That would be the scariest thing ever. Okay. Let me know when you've done that.
All right, I'm going to have to recover from that mental image.
Sorry. I don't know where. They're both so pasty and not attractive. Okay. Sorry.
So back to the lecture at hand. This CEO, his name is David Morales. He was a Spanish Special Forces officer. He was contracted through Las Vegas Sands, the company of Sheldon Adelson, for this operation. Sheldon Adelson's very closely involved with Trump. So what you had here was basically U.S. intelligence using a billionaire closely affiliated with the then CIA director, Mike Pompeo. Adelson's funding been behind Pompeo and Trump, to basically act as a third party or a liaison to give plausible deniability to the CIA. And so Adelson started funding this security firm, which had the contract at the Ecuadorian embassy to set up an advanced surveillance system and spy on Assange, spy on him meeting with his lawyers, meeting with journalists, meeting with friends, including, people like Pamela Anderson or our friend Randy Credico. And David Morales went way further than just spying. He started to propose poisoning Assange, the leading dissident in the West, which is something that, Putin gets blamed for left and right, but we never discussed this. He proposed a kidnapping operation to get him out of the embassy. They started stalking his partner, Stella Morris, who is also on his legal team because they had had 2 children together.
Oh, right.
Try to determine if the children were his. They were stealing diapers of the infant children from the trash can in the embassy. And then they realized you can't get DNA out of feces.
Right.
So
how dumb
anyway,
are they?
they called off the operation, but the workers under Morales were starting to get freaked out. I mean, what I documented in my report, the American Friends in May, were not just these proposals, but actual robberies that took place under the watch of this firm.
Under the what? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Under the watch of this firm, UC Global, which very clearly was contracted by the CIA. And, the other workers, they were like, we didn't sign up for this. This is like going a little bit too far. And eventually they went to the Spanish police. including a business partner, like someone who is a higher up in the company, and gave testimony about what Morales was doing. A Spanish judge, first of all, enacted a major police operation of investigation called Operación Tabanco, which is named after a wine from southern Spain where the security firm is based. And they surveilled David Morales. So basically, the Spanish police were spying on the guy who is the CIA was using to spy on Assange. That's why this case is so fascinating to me. And they arrested him in September of last year. A month later, they charged him criminally with embezzlement, fraud, violation of attorney-client privilege, illegal handgun possession. He had guns at his house with the serial numbers filed off, which is what you have when you want to commit a homicide.
Right.
And now there are piles and piles of documents relating to the surveillance that was carried out of Assange on behalf of the CIA in a Spanish court. And I've gained access to a lot of those documents, which has allowed me to put this narrative together. I'm not the only journalist. Like El País, the Spanish Daily, has done a series of reports on it. But I think what I've been able to do is show the hand of Sheldon Adelson in this investigation, in this sort of black operations, show the relationship between his security team, and like I named names, and the CIA. And what I did in this last piece that you mentioned was to actually show or provide a little bit more detail on how journalists were spied on when they met with Julian Assange during that time, that throughout 2017, when he was in the embassy and the surveillance ramped up to an extreme degree. And what's so interesting about this is, for the last 4 years, we've seen the Beltway press freak out about, the attack on press freedom by the Trump administration. The Washington Post changed its slogan to "Democracy dies in darkness." And the Beltway press corps, they go crazy every time Trump browbeats one of the people in the press pool. But at least 2 reporters who are very well-known mainstream journalists went into that embassy, were spied on, had their devices opened by a apparent CIA contractor without their permission, had their personal information basically hacked into, and they have said nothing. Ellen Nakashima, who is the top national security reporter for the Washington Post, was among those who were spied on meeting with Assange. And I had documented, based on notes obtained through the trial, through these court proceedings, that the spy who was posing as an embassy guard actually tried to steal her voice recorder, but she remembered it at the door. And she knew she had been spied on, once the Spanish media started reporting on this case. And I mean, there's no way to deny it now. And I tried reaching out to her and I asked, why did you say nothing? Why have you said nothing about having your constitutional rights violated, apparently by the CIA? The CIA is not allowed to spy on Americans. Lowell Bergman, who is a really renowned investigative journalist. He's been around for decades. He worked for the New York Times, PBS. He's someone from, I'd say sort of from another era, but he went to meet with Assange. I don't know if he did any writing on it or reporting on it, but he met with him and he has said nothing. And I got the documentation of all the spying that was done on him. But, I think it would be, I wouldn't say pivotal, but it would make a huge impact if figures from mainstream media started to raise their voices and complain about the fact that U.S. intelligence violated their constitutional rights, attacked press freedom in order to destroy a journalist's life and get him imprisoned for the rest of his life. I mean, you would think this would be like an easy campaign, but they've said nothing. So why did they say nothing? I proposed, a few theories. I produced a document that showed that Ellen Nakashima from the Washington Post, when she applied to visit Julian Assange, she had to fill out a form and list her company and her, what time she planned to meet him and so on. The company she listed was not the Washington Post. The company she listed was Amazon.
Right.
Amazon is building a huge headquarters, or I mean, they're just building a gigantic city within a city across the Potomac River from where I am in Arlington, Virginia, which will be very close to the heart of the U.S. intelligence community. They currently host the CIA's cloud server. They had signed a $600 million deal with the CIA. They also were awarded a $15 billion deal with the Pentagon to provide Pentagon's online digital security infrastructure. So, and then you have just Ellen Nakashima being a mainstream U.S. reporter in the era of Russiagate and Trump, when they're just getting fed all of these stories. And when I say stories, I mean like a lot of them are just straight up tall tales told by unnamed U.S. officials from the intelligence apparatus. And it would basically be like biting the hand that feeds you.
Right.
It would be like cutting you off from be like ripping out Terry Schiavo's feeding tube and then just watching her just day after day as she deteriorated. I mean, that's what would happen if you pissed off the CIA and you're a Washington Post national security reporter.
Right.
They don't report on the CIA anymore. They report for the CIA. The CIA is just like, it's like if you're lazy at home and you're just lazy and you don't know how to cook, and someone just keeps showing up at your house with like pre-made food, and all you have to do is push like defrost on the microwave. That's what the CIA does for the Washington Post and the New York Times with every story.
The CIA is the Washington Post feeder.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. And so why is the media so silent overall? Well, it's obvious. They hate Assange. He showed them up. He threw down the gauntlet and said, here's what you have to do. You have to start actually exposing your own governments and your own institutions and their wanton criminality. And if you don't do it, the information is just going to be out there. And he did that. And then he exposed corruption within the Democratic Party. And most of these reporters, are Democrats, and they feel very strongly that Julian Assange contributed to the defeat of Hillary Clinton and the rise of Donald Trump, who yells at them every day, calls them fake news, which they are.
Right. That's the irony. Yeah.
And so they hate him. They don't care if he's a journalist. It shows they have no principles. And then finally, they will not face the consequences he has, or face any prosecution or persecution, because of the interest they serve. They don't get in the way. So why would they fear any of this? So that's like most of the mainstream media, including The Guardian, which The Guardian's reporting has been used by the US prosecution against Assange in the case that's going on in London right now. And Guardian columnist Owen Jones, this little shrieking opportunist, they've said nothing. None of them have said anything, except one columnist, Hadley Freeman, who's like this cartoonish embodiment of a neoliberal, wrote a piece attacking Assange while he's facing 75 years in prison and held in like solitary confinement. So that's The Guardian. But what I focused on is reporters who were actually spied on, who were actually attacked, like by the U.S. intelligence apparatus, who have said nothing. And I think that's a whole nother level of silence that merits not just mockery, but I mean, it's confusing to me, just that you would be so submissive before power that you would even allow them to violate your own constitutional rights. There's a reporter in Italy, Stefania Morizzi, who's been a very strong advocate for Assange, but also a down-the-line reporter who worked for a mainstream left-of-center Italian publication, La Repubblica, for most of the time that she was covering the WikiLeaks saga. And she is filing a criminal complaint in the Spanish National Court on behalf of the journalists who are victims. And she told me that she cannot get any other journalist who is spied on to join her criminal complaint, and she doesn't understand why. So that's the state of the media right now. That's sort of the world that we're the subculture that we're functioning in, and it's one that freely accepts just freely accepts Western intelligence vandalizing their personal electronic devices, invading their privacy and violating their rights. And they're supposed to speak for us and tell our stories and defend people who have no voices by presenting their stories and shining, bringing the sunlight that's the best disinfectant. No, they are the darkness that kills democracy.
Yeah. Hold on one second. Sorry. I hope Katie feels better mocking Assange's appearance. There's like some weird troll. I'll just ignore them in the chat. But we're allowed to make fun of the way that Trump and Adelson look, I think. But so, okay, Max, you said something.
It was a little confusing, but it sounded maybe like you were mentioning Assange, but you meant to say Eric Trump and Adelson.
Oh, did I say Assange? Sorry,
I think it was like a mistake, but
okay, that was a mistake. Thank you. I did not mean to make. I was wondering. No wonder I was being so. Someone was being so hostage. Okay, no, I'm not. I did not mean to make fun of Assange's physical appearance, which I would never do because if you can't tell, I have kind of a moral compass on the show, and I don't vilify people who are facing like hundreds of years in prison for being brave. Anyway, little rule of thumb. But if I did say that, then big apologies for that. It's true. Microsoft Word technical support. Adelson is hot AF. But Max, in terms of what you were just saying, I get that people. I guess I'm not surprised. I think that there's a huge debate about whether or not Adelson. Oh my God, a huge debate about whether or not Assange is a journalist. But let's just say he's a publisher, right? Like for argument's sake, because you could make that argument. I get why someone doesn't identify with what Assange does. It's still incredibly disturbing that they don't realize that it couldn't come around to bite them in the ass. But in a weird way, it speaks to how rational and reasonable these people are in a weird way, right? Because they're correct that they won't be pursued the way that Assange is pursued, given what they do.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I think their worst fear wouldn't be being persecuted. Like Judith Miller tried to make a sort of free speech hero out of herself when she refused to give up her source in Scooter Libby.
Right.
But it doesn't just apply to like radical anti-imperialists who see themselves as dissidents. The worst fear of most people working in media right now, who, as I think Matt Taibbi really nailed it when he called journalists the talentless middle class, that most of them, they can't hammer a nail or build anything, and they don't really have other skills. So it's just like a perfect profession. And so many of them depend on, so much of it is about access and networking.
Right.
And when you lose access to power, particularly the realm of the power structure that is able to obtain information that conveys authority with the public because it's an intelligence community, as if they're like these Mensa members who consult an oracle in the woods. We are the intelligence community. In fact, they're neither,
right.
Particularly communal. That when you lose access to that and you're at the top of the world in one of these legacy publications, then you lose your job and you have nowhere to go. And you have to either work a real job or I don't know what you do. That to them is worse than being jailed, I think. And I could even say the same for some people working in like passes for progressive media today.
Yeah. Who is right now? It's really scary because Kevin Gostola, who I had on last week, has published a piece at Shadowproof, and he names the like literal handful of journalists who are covering Assange literally through the Zoom link that he was instrumental in getting. And but for that, there would be no one covering it, basically, who wasn't in the courtroom. But even beyond that, it's like those are the people directly with permission to actually have video access to the trial, extradition trial. But there's so many people who consider themselves liberal who are either ignoring this story, kind of like hedging their bets on this story. And again, it's so disturbing because you don't have to like Assange. I mean, this is basic liberalism, right? The famous, probably apocryphal, Voltaireism of, I may not agree with you, but I'll fight to the death to defend your right to say what you have to say. Like this isn't that far out or radical. There's nothing like Marxist, extremist, alienating foreign about this idea that we're supposed to be fighting for free speech and the free press. And watching all these people who claim that Trump is this, an assault, an aberration, and fighting and destroying our norms, like watching them remain silent about this is just really disturbing.
Yeah. They are constantly howling about this attack on our institutions as well. But this is the trial of the century. I mean, this really will determine the right of anyone to publish state secrets. And those state secrets can be so valuable to people who are trying to expose corrupt institutions. Everyone watching probably knows that the Pentagon took billions of dollars that was supposed to be for PPE and other protective equipment, and they spent it on drones.
Yeah.
And they spent, and then they, who knows where it all went. It went to like a bunch of contractors. That's where all the money goes. I mean, so much of the budget goes to the Pentagon, and it's over half of the Pentagon's budget then goes to the Beltway bandits, the contractors, like the people who are spying on Julian Assange, private spies, and all the contractors who supply all of the, the military and so on. That kind of stuff needs to be exposed. And that's really what WikiLeaks was about. People who supported Bernie Sanders in 2016 were very grateful for WikiLeaks because it told everyone else what they already knew, which was that the game was rigged. The DNC was run by people who are in the tank for Hillary because they are basically representing corporations in Wall Street, and they were rigging the primary. And that means we don't live in this great democracy they say we do. WikiLeaks did such a valuable service on so many levels. And at this point, the trial of Julian Assange itself is exposing not just like institutions, but the United States and its legal system and the way that it understands international law and its relationship with countries that it describes as allies, which are actually vassals. Like Australia. Australia is not even a country. It's basically been annexed by the United States. And this is the country to which Julian Assange belongs. Yet he's in London in the United Kingdom, where you have a U.S. prosecutor from the Department of Justice arguing in a British court for his extradition to the United States, this country he doesn't even belong to prosecute him simply for publishing state secrets, which so many other publications and journalists have done. And at the same time, you have this case in Madrid that I've been talking about, where it has been proven that his entire legal defense was spied upon while it was conceived. His meetings with lawyers were spied on. That should be enough to invalidate the case completely, but obviously it's still going forward. And then you mentioned how few reporters are covering this, the trial of the century. For part of that is because very few people have been allowed in the courtroom to been given credentials. I mean, several human rights groups were refused credentials, but there is also a curious and I would say studied lack of interest. And someone who was spied on, one of the reporters who was spied on during their meeting with Julian Assange, along with his husband, David Miranda, was Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald has spoken out. He has publicly protested being spied on by what he called the CIA and having his constitutional rights violated. And he's written about the case, and I understand he's going to write more about it. But his publication, The Intercept, which was founded to focus on these whistleblower cases and these corruption cases, it was basically founded to publicize the Snowden files. They haven't sent anyone to cover this round of hearings, and they didn't send anyone to the last round of hearings, which took place before the lockdown, when it was possible to actually have a reporter inside the courtroom. So why is that? Why are they're just focused completely on, like, you know, getting progressive Democrats elected. And Glenn is really the only one there who's talking about the trial of the century. So, I mean, it really seems like their brand has been completely hollowed out. In addition to the fact that they have disappeared the Snowden files. The Snowden files, those belong to us. I mean, that was the NSA. That's our taxpayer money as Americans. We paid to be spied on by the NSA. And Edward Snowden did us a service by showing us what was being done to us. That should be public.
Did us space a service, just so people don't think you said did service. Yeah.
Did us American citizens a service. Yeah. It was an illegal spying program, and there were so many valuable files there that were peripheral to it, and it's been disappeared. So basically, it was privatized when Pierre Omidyar bought it.
Okay.
Laura Poitras believed that it would be overseen in a kind of like library, and then it would be collated and then filtered out through reporting responsibly, and then they just kind of canceled it. And I don't know where it is. It's like buried with Jimmy Hoffa under Giant Stadium for all I know. And that, to me, really is a betrayal of what I thought The Intercept was all about. So it's like even publications that you thought would cover this are not. But
there does seem to see some personalized beef, though, to be fair, between Laura Poitras and some Intercept people that I'm not like defending all of the Intercept at all or vilifying her. It does seem like there was some personal stuff, though.
I mean, I don't think it's not personal for me, but the personnel matters. A publication's only as good as its personnel.
Sure.
And when you start with a core group of adversarial journalists, as The Intercept did, and then you build out with a bunch of Russiagating boomers like Jim Risen and Bob Mackey, and you bring in like these shrieking, opportunistic, like hollow frauds like Mehdi Hassan, who just like has like 5 media jobs, and like he just goes with the liberal flow to get an MSNBC show. And you just bring in all of these people who are not really adversarial and who are New York Times retreads and people who've been in mainstream media before. The inevitable result is that your brand doesn't mean what it was intended to in the beginning. And you get situations like Reality Winner, where even the New York Times is bagging on you for selling out a source and getting her in prison. And Laura Poitras is calling, and I think Glenn even called for,
he did,
maybe I'm wrong, he called for the editor-in-chief to be fired.
Yeah, that's what Ben told me, which I didn't really,
I mean, that's a publication in serious crisis, and it's because when you have a brand, it has to mean something, and that means that people working under the brand have to have a shared ideology and value system and worldview. So like at the Gray Zone, I'm not going to bring someone in there who isn't on board with us just because they get a lot of hits and like they have like 5 jobs with like Mehdi Hassan does or something like that.
Right.
So,
yeah. I mean, this is not based on anything. Like I have no private conversations with Glenn on this. We had him on Useful Idiots. I can't imagine he would stay there that much longer, honestly. It just strikes me as, I don't know.
Well, I don't know where else there is to really.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's true. Yeah.
And the Intercept Brazil sort of.
They do it. Yeah.
And they seem to consist more of people who at least have a shared value system and understanding of politics.
Yeah, no, I mean, to be fair to like they do invaluable work in many ways. The Brazil one definitely does invaluable work. I think that there's a lot of invaluable work done at the Intercept, but I do agree with a lot of your critiques of the Intercept. And I think it's, it's a bit scary and discouraging how it kind of is like the principle of socialism or labor organizing. Like all it takes is the power of numbers. Like if more people were covering the Assange case, it wouldn't be as fringe. Like it doesn't have to be that fringe.
Well, it's not that it's not just that it wouldn't be that fringe. It's that it would be much harder for the prosecution to extradite him here to the U.S. and expect a favorable result.
Right. Yes. Those things, I would say they're interrelated, right? Like his case wouldn't be as fringe. He as a figure wouldn't be as fringe. It wouldn't be as easy to portray him as someone who deserves that kind of treatment. And it really is. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this a lot, which is like people will write you privately to thank you for doing something or talking about something, and say that they wish that they could also. I don't know. Maybe you haven't experienced that.
That's
right.
like
your lane.
That's it's been, ever since I started writing about Israel, it was like,
right. And now Israel is Syria, right? Because now everyone's kind of caught up with Israel stuff.
Right. Well, the Israel thing was, it's very personal to Jews and liberal Jews. So like in my book party for Goliath,
I see what you mean. Right.
The book I came out with in 2013, like my parents had a book party for me. They got behind the book and, half the State Department was there, like people from like Democratic Party NGOs, like Media Matters were there. And they were like, it was all like a wink and a nod, like, thank you for doing this.
Right.
It's about time someone took on big bad Netanyahu. And I'm so disgusted with what Israel's become, but we can't say anything about it.
Right.
And it was kind of like I was being like used as a human shield to take all these attacks. Then they kind of like found like Peter Beinart's doing it in a much more like kind of with a velvet glove, and he's not really challenging the foundations of Zionism. So let's get behind that.
Yeah.
Which
does have a lot of, I would say, is a very useful thing too. But you think it's it's co-opting.
Well, whatever. The point is, that's what a lot of Washington is.
Right.
I mean, taking on the empire in a really systematic way and challenging regime change in countries like Syria or Venezuela, but particularly Syria, or even challenging U.S. policy on Korea.
Right.
That's different. There's very few people in Washington that secretly would like to do that. I mean, they're Democrat, Republican, they're all on board for like smashing all governments that challenge U.S. hegemony, but they feel sorry for Palestinians because they are stateless.
Right.
They can't be really held to account. They have no state. They're scattered around the world. And Israel claims in the voice of, card-carrying Republican Benjamin Netanyahu to represent world Judaism. So you have a large section, a huge swath of the liberal intelligentsia in Washington, up the Acela corridor and across to the West Coast, who are just disgusted by that.
Right. Well, it's a really important point. You made this, I think, like maybe a year ago. No, not quite a year ago. It was after you came back from Syria. You were talking about how easy it is for people to kind of critical of Israel and to defend Palestine and Palestinians because there isn't a state power, and it's a lot harder for leftists sometimes to embrace an actual state. Because there's, it's complicated and it's easier to fit like a non-state into a utopian ideal.
Right. And, also from the point of view of, left-wing careerists, people who are professional NGO workers, activists, professional journalists, it's just better to just be generally against power and to speak truth to power. That's kind of like the Amy Goodman model at Democracy Now! And it's why she gets caught up so much in replicating neoconservative regime change rhetoric and campaigns and hosts people who are actually imperialists, because she just sees any opposition movement or any protest movement as against power and therefore legitimate, and doesn't see the hand of imperialism behind it. It's sort of an anarcho-liberal perspective that pervades progressive media in the US. It's born also out of ignorance and not talking to people in countries that are targeted by regime change, and not understanding that the alternative is always, in every case, going to be much worse once the government is dismantled. Libya being the perfect example. But Belarus, there's a country with virtually no political freedom that is under attack right now. As we were, talking, the U.S. announced that it will no longer recognize the government of Alexander Lukashenko. There's a protest movement in the streets. It's very much supported by the U.S. and EU. The designated leader, Svetlana Tikhonovskaya, is heavily supported now by the EU and US and NATO. She's basically in their back pocket. The New York Times just made a campaign ad for her in their opinion section. It's like naked campaigning for regime change at the New York Times. And what they would like to do with Belarus is take away the positive things that the country has established under Lukashenko's non-democratic watch, which is a public sector that doesn't exist in any other of the post-Soviet states. Free education, free healthcare, pretty good economy, a much better economy with much more equality, less inequality than the other post-Soviet states. There are no real oligarchs in Belarus because they still have huge public programs. The pension system isn't great, but it's there. And they even have a booming tech sector in and around Minsk. So many of the people who are protesting were sort of products of the growing middle class that's flourished, but they don't have like huge mansions outside Minsk like they even have in Moscow now. They're like upper middle class people. And that will all be laid to waste, and it will be ravaged like the other, the Baltic states, where inequality is just out of control. Ukraine has a larger percentage of its population living outside the country that is migrated out than Venezuela, which is under massive economic attack. And so people don't consider the consequences of regime change, and they think that any attempt to put any of this in context is support for the big bad dictator, because they just don't understand that not every country wants our system. And I wonder why they find that so hard to understand, given the crisis that our system is in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an absolute catastrophe. And every day liberals are freaking out about, Trump possibly not handing over power, but then you have Hillary Clinton telling Joe Biden not to concede the election if he loses. I mean, this is a disaster. It is a joke. And if you look at this country from the outside, nobody wants this system. They just kind of want to be left alone. And the fact is, most people around the world value having free healthcare, enough food to eat, free housing programs. Venezuela has housed 3 million families for free under 20 years of economic attack. They actually value that more than a bourgeois liberal democracy where they get to vote for like two parties of the same management team. And that's just the facts.
Yeah. It's interesting. Did you see that Biden tweeted something today about Guaido?
I did not. But Guaido did a fake UN address today. I saw that, where he called for the U.S. to invade Venezuela.
Is he going to use that guy again?
What guy?
The guy.
Oh, Jordan.
Okay, Jordan. Yeah, as Matt and I have a term for triggered Canadian white men. Okay, Jordan applies to Jordan, Goudreau, and also Peterson.
We did a kind of I don't want to say funny, but there was a level of dark humor in it. A report about Jordan Goudreau and Silvercore, the mercenary firm.
Oh yeah, Anya interview. You mean the thing?
Anya
we had her on.
Well, she got him on the phone for a second, but he wouldn't talk. But she got the COO of Silvercorp mercenary firm on the phone, and he was like this guy named Drew, and he was working in Colorado, and he was doing like mortgages or something.
Yeah, he was really freaked out. He was worried for Jordan.
Yeah, he's like, I'm really worried for these guys, but we were just supposed to do school shooter drills.
I
and
know,
we
like
did
21 Jump
for
Street
that instead
style.
of invading Venezuela.
Right.
I'm like, man, that just shows you like what a joke the whole. I mean, it just.
Bay of Piglets.
Yeah, I mean, like it's the same as like the guy who was the CIA found to spy on Assange. It was the same kind of ratchet operation.
Right. It's true. Yeah, you're right.
And
Maybe
anyway,
yeah.
okay, so as Juan Guaido speaks about the Venezuelan humanitarian.
Oh, you should read this in your Biden voice. Your Biden voice is pretty funny.
Biden-Harris administration will always turn on the radio, listen to your telephone, and look. Democracy, human rights. And Corn Pop was touching my leg hair, and I was on the diving board wrapping a chain around his neck. And I looked at
Esther Williams. Esther Williams. Remember he called him Esther Williams? That's what the fight was about, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
Switchblade. I got a switchblade. What did you say? Razor blade. What was it?
All I know is his inaugural address is going to be inspiring. Before like an empty field and like on the frozen tundra of Washington under lockdown. It's going to be like just so inspiring. But basically what he's saying in his tweet is his foreign policy will be a continuation of Trump's on Venezuela. I mean, what a joke. Juan Guaido went on a Zoom call tonight and pretended to be the president of Venezuela speaking at the UN General Assembly. And Biden, well, whoever's writing these tweets for Biden, his like, foreign policy blob creature, Twitter AI generator, basically is taking that seriously. I mean, it would be, I mean, it's like a parody. Like Guaido's term as the head of the National Assembly in Venezuela, which led to him being appointed president by the United States and like 50 vassal countries, his term is over. He no longer is even technically qualified to claim that he can be the interim president. So it just shows what a joke. And like for people to be howling about Trump saying he won't concede the election, while the U.S. is doing this abroad, to me, it's just it just feels ridiculous. Or like there was a picture of like 7 Neanderthals with like cosplay military gear on, walking through the painfully depressing downtown of Louisville. I mean, I saw that video that everyone was sending around. I was like, man, U.S. cities are so depressing. Their downtowns are so depressing. But anyway, yeah, they have these like cretins walking around with their guns and kind of intimidating people. I mean, what do you think the U.S. is funding in Syria, or what they're funding in Colombia to intimidate Venezuela? What they did in Nicaragua and El Salvador? I mean, this is, I'm not saying that it's permissible, but this is our foreign policy coming home.
Right.
And these groups, you know, all they're doing is, the way they function is very much the way Israeli settlers function, where they're a force multiplier for the established security services, and they are allowed to do things the security services don't do with impunity. And they're operating completely under the watch of police and federal law enforcement. Just when I encounter them, when I encounter like right-wing militiamen in the U.S., it just brings me back to being in the West Bank, to being in the South Hebron Hills. It's just the same vibe, same energy.
Yeah. Who do you prefer? Someone asked about Brian, big fan of the show, very loyal. We really appreciate him. He asked about whose son you prefer, Biden, Hunter, or Don Jr.
Hunter is a lost addict. That's what I'm fine. I turned off the comments because they're so distracting.
Oh, they're distracting. Okay. So I put it in there. Yeah, I agree.
So who do I prefer, Hunter Biden or Don Jr.?
Sorry about that. I actually find, we talked about this last episode, I find Hunter kind of endearing and tragic.
Yeah, I mean, Hunter's, I would say it took a lot of balls for him to come out in the DNC and, you know, show his face.
Yeah.
But that came on the heels of a really concerted PR campaign that a sort of famous for nothing millionaire is able to do, where he gets a spread, and I think it was the New York Times magazine, where they portrayed him as kind of a eccentric tortured artist, and they showed his art. And some of the stories about him are like harmless. Well, I don't know if you want to call it harmless, but he, being in the VIP room of Hustler, and he demands a personal assistant rush out and get him like a butt plug or something. Like,
we've all been there. Am I right?
We've all been there. I mean, I actually have never been in the VIP room of the Hustler Club.
Me neither. Never been in any section of it. Yeah.
But he, he's not preying on people. He's just a pathetic character. I wrote a long piece about his work in Ukraine.
Oh, right.
This is more about his father than him, I think, because it was his father who presided over the transition from a government that was democratically elected, albeit corrupt, to one that was just super corrupt and aligned with street level neo-Nazis and just completely disastrous, that led to his son being, Biden didn't ask for his son to be appointed to the board of Burisma, but it happened because of the policy choices made by Biden, who is traveling to and from Kiev to preside over throughout 2015 and 2016. The policies, he was dictating policies to that super corrupt government, which was run by a billionaire oligarch. And Ukraine is a disaster. So his son was brought in because of his own policy choices to serve on the board, $80,000 a month, of a natural gas company that was only important to the U.S. because Ukraine was cut off from its major importer of natural gas, which was Russia, and the U.S. was demanding no business with Russia. So, the son in so many ways is, in these political families, often reflects the policy choices and personal choices the father made. And
to the father.
Don Jr., I don't know what that guy does. He has like this, he's just kind of a parody of like the coach's, it's like the coach's son, but like, the coach is Montgomery Burns. It's like he runs around defending his father's honor, and he's, his speech at the Republican convention was like Hunter Biden during his Hustler VIP room days.
Right.
So,
yeah, but for Trump, that's like demure in a way.
Yeah. Who doesn't remember bringing their own butt plug? Buying one new is kind of extravagant. I prefer beads. Yeah, those are valid points. It's like
that is such a Scranton. It's Scranton versus Park Avenue.
Yeah,
Hunter brings his own butt plug.
Or in Scranton, you just get a tree branch and wrap some moss around it.
Right, Park Avenue, you run out to Babes in Toyland, Toys in Babeland. I can never remember which it is. Now it's just Babeland, apparently. Yeah.
You could do all that before the lockdown. I don't know where to get a butt plug after midnight these days.
And COVID's really cut into that.
Yeah. So any more questions? I think
here's one. Great article on Planet of Humans, Max. What do you think are the implications for that progressive sacred cow, the Green New Deal?
Yeah, thanks for that question.
Thanks for that plug.
Thanks for that plug. Yeah, my piece on Planet of the Humans really started with just being annoyed at the reaction to it and knowing that an echo chamber was behind a censorship campaign. It reminded me of the campaign to censor my book, which is now out on
The Management of Savagery. Ooh, nice. I like the new color. It's black with
the
green.
New color
It used to be
really
white.
cool.
It matches your eyes. Right? And my logo.
Yeah, it looks better. This is the hard cover, and I really think that the paperback looks sharper and pops.
Yeah,
anyway, there was a campaign, a concerted, organized campaign to cancel all of my book talks, to even pressure my publisher into rescinding the book's publication by, political forces that were fairly powerful, that were involved in the Syria regime change operation and the information war behind it. And it reminded me of what happened to Planet of the Humans, which was a free documentary on YouTube that really focused on three intertwined themes: the flaws of renewable energy, the billionaires behind the environmental movement and family foundations, and how they were basically co-opting it and causing it to support capitalism, which is really the problem at the heart of the destruction of the planet. And I don't remember what the third theme was, but it was there, and it was very subversive. But the film was, generating millions of views and provoking a debate about what I would call a climate cartel, which is a collection of a network of environmental groups that aren't actually environmental groups. They're focused exclusively on the climate. And when you focus exclusively on the climate, which it needs to be focused on, you're only talking about carbon emissions. And when you're only talking about carbon emissions, then your goal is to reduce the amount of fossil fuel that's used and then replace it with renewable energy. So the renewable energy industry becomes this gigantic profit center, $40 to $50 trillion, according to Wall Street investors like David Blood, who runs a supposedly green investment firm with Al Gore. And they want to get their hands on that profit center. So they're basically paying green leadership, environmental leadership, to serve as like de facto lobbyists for their interests, to sell the public on a 100% transition to renewable energy by the year 2050. And we're supposed to believe that, number one, solar and wind are environmentally friendly, that they don't do harm to the environment, as well as electric batteries. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, just mandated that all cars bought in California, after 2030, or when is it, 2025, must be, not, cars that do not run on gas, electric cars or hybrid vehicles. And we're supposed to believe that those batteries are environmentally friendly. And number two, we're supposed to believe that it is possible to power a growing economy like the United States that is still capitalist and very unregulated off of this kind of energy. And in both cases, it's totally false. It's completely false to think that it doesn't require massive amounts of minerals that have to be mined from sensitive areas of the global south, like Congo, where lithium and various other elements that are required to make electric batteries are mined by children and slave labor, or Bolivia, which sits on the largest supply of lithium in the world, where Evo Morales, the ousted president, has said that he was the victim of a lithium coup. Brazil, Elon Musk has met with Jair Bolsonaro and wants to open up a Tesla factory there because they have huge supplies of lithium and other minerals that you need for these batteries. All of these forms of energy are extremely mineral intensive, far more than standard automotives. Like to get a Tesla on the road, it's a car that weighs 3,000 pounds. To get its battery in there, you're going to have to use something like 20 times the amount of minerals that you use to build a common car. And that's why mining.com, the premier journal of the mining industry, has said that Greta Thunberg and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are the unsung heroes of mining.
Hold on 1 second. That's not it.
What is it now? Where
It's
is
not it. Hold on 1 second. Dad, sorry. Your laptop charger is not in here.
one? Yes, one of them has to, because you were using it a lot.
Hold on 1 second.
And it's not.
Hold on, please. Hold on, please. Sorry about that. Max, are you there? Sorry. My dad came in looking for his laptop computer. It's a really good look.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
So
my mom was even trying to restrain him. Anyway.
There's tons of research which the film built on to show that renewables can cause huge amounts of damage to the planet, to the environment, especially through mining. That's why the mining industry is kind of getting behind the renewables revolution, as well as Wall Street. But then you have the issue of whether it's possible to power this economy in the US off of all renewables. And there's this study that all of the supporters of the Green New Deal point to, including Bernie Sanders, by an engineer named Mark Jacobson from Stanford University, which is basically a model or it's a model. It's not actually science. It's him putting together a model to show how renewable energy can power the economy in 2050 with no carbon emissions. And it doesn't add up. It was destroyed actually by 21 scientists in a peer-reviewed journal for the National Academy of Sciences. And Jacobson was so upset with their findings that he filed defamation lawsuits against them, which have gone nowhere. In fact, he's had to pay their legal fees because he got SLAPP. They got SLAPP, strategic lawsuit against public participation. It was ruled a frivolous lawsuit. And he had no response to my article except to just be really angry on Twitter. And I think there's a real problem there. If you actually look in his model, it's like you have to increase hydroelectric, which means damming rivers, to the same level as 1,000 coal and nuclear plants working full time on full power in order to get where he wants to be. In addition to taking up huge percentages of land for solar farms, which themselves require fossil fuels, and destroy nature. Wind farms, they destroy nature. If they have to be put on mountaintops, you're talking about mountaintop removal. I'm not saying there's no place for renewables at all, but they've put together a fantasy in order to present a vision of green capitalism or green social democracy that's going to keep the current system going, but make people feel better about it, instead of what I think the environmental movement should be doing, which is waging war on the billionaire class, waging class war on the billionaires who are behind planetary destruction and the economic system they represent. So they're not partnering with anti-war groups. Bill McKibben from 350.org, he's not partnering with anti-war groups. He's going around writing in the New York Review of Books that environmentalists should work with the Pentagon because their research and development capacity is so powerful and they're so science oriented and they can speak to a part of the population that won't listen to scientists. No, the Pentagon is emitting far more carbon and doing more harm to the planet, including destroying sea life. I mean, they're an existential threat. Naval ships are an existential threat to the manatee population and whales than any other institution in the US that I can think of. And he's saying we should partner with them. So 350 isn't exactly turning out to anti-war rallies. They have, a big constituency. What they're doing is actually taking people away from anti-capitalism, taking people away from organizing for socialism and filtering them back into the same institutions and the same system that's responsible for the crisis. And I think that's the most powerful part of Planet of the Humans that I tried to expound on in my piece, which wound up, getting close to 10,000 words.
Right. Any interesting responses? How does that response compare to the responses you get to like your Syria or Russiagate stuff?
Actually, the response has been overwhelmingly positive, at least in private. And what I notice in response to my work on Syria or Russiagate or, just the whole new Cold War is, I get insulted a lot. People try to denigrate me or suggest that I'm sort of like an asset for one of the countries that I'm arguing about. In this case, there really was no response, but I didn't receive like a tidal wave of personal attacks. And I think that's just because I'm not constantly sustaining journalism on environmental issues. But if I really was going to do it, it was really nice of Michael Moore to mention my piece and on your show. And he also went on Rising and talked about it a little bit. And I hope it provokes debate. I mean, I hope people actually start thinking about what the Green New Deal is and what it should be, because it can be, as it's currently conceived, it's very vague. It's just a vague proposal. There's some well-meaning components in it, But if people think that they're just going to transition to a socialist future with renewable energy by 2050, they're deluded. And that's not actually what the more powerful forces who want to see this transition take place have in mind. What they have in mind is frankly dystopian.
Yeah. Really just want to read Raphael A's question or comment. Wish it had more on factory farming than overpopulation. It's probably the biggest discretionary source of emissions and environmental destruction. And then someone else commented thank you, Raphael A. Then Christopher, before that, someone commented on how it was more overconsumption than population. Here. Kelly M. Katie, general consensus in the chat is that that's your hair is gorgeous. Thank you. I'll tell you about that later, but that's not actually what I was looking for. There was someone who said something about overconsumption. It was not. Can someone retype that in, because I can't keep up with the comments, which is great. But someone wrote something about consumption versus population, which I'm looking for. Oh, here we go. Matt Farr. I think people took the overpopulation thing wrong in the movie. I think it was more about the amount of people with our current rate of consumption.
Yeah.
And then just putting this all in the. Then there are two other questions we can get to, which is one from Christopher Dobie saying, Max, I think you should have Professor or talk to Professor Steve Keen on this. He's recently released a paper on neoliberal economics regarding global warming, numbers man. And then Brian asked if you're excited about the presidential debates. And there's another thing in there. Max, is there any hope that more socialist regimes can be reestablished in South America? Okay.
All right. Well, on the first question, that's a really important point about the section in Planet of the Humans about overpopulation. It really struck a chord. I think I told the filmmakers that they opened themselves up to attacks, even if they were unfair attacks, because by bringing up the issue of overpopulation, but not really specifying what the remedy is, they opened themselves up to attacks that they were racist, that
eugenicist,
Malthusian, eco-fascist, Malthusian, that they were actually suggesting coercive population controls, which has been something that the original progressives, including Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, did advocate. I mean, it's just part of that culture at the time, and they just didn't specify. But what they did really mean was that too many people means too much consumption, and that consumption is the key issue environmentalists should be focusing on, because it's what leads to planetary destruction on a holistic level, from deforestation to the depletion of the ozone layer and climate change, and overfishing, turning the oceans into just these empty bodies of water, and so on. And biodiversity. I mean, when people talk about, they just focus exclusively on climate change. They don't talk about biodiversity. And a point Jeff Gibbs, who was the director of Planet of the Humans, made to me was like, I want to live on a planet with a bunch of windmills and solar panels, and there's no orangutans, and there are very few other species living among us. And that's a salient point. It's become forbidden to talk about overpopulation because it suggests that you're a racist. But even to talk about overconsumption scares a lot of people, particularly in the United States, because you're talking about degrowth. You're talking about rolling back the economy. And then people start to think, well, then our country will become weaker while China takes over. That's the theme of Matt Iglesias's new book, where we need to have 1 billion people. And he went on Glenn Beck's show.
Really?
Panic about the demographic peril posed by China, that they're outbreeding us and therefore are overtaking the United States as a hegemonic power. And therefore the US needs to import massive amounts of people. And, I guess, I don't know how many kids Matt has, but he should really lead the way there.
1 child per year.
Yeah, but the point is, like, They reminded me of Israelis. Then they were bonding over this fear of the Chinese demographic threat, because more people means a bigger economy, but it also means environmental catastrophe, and it also means importing people to the United States, as many as you can. If you're not unionizing them and you have a capitalist economy, it means super exploitation, massive inequality. And so it's an insane idea, but yet it's not as controversial as what was put forward in Planet of the Humans. Now to the next question, which I totally forgot.
It was about, let's see,
presidential debates. Am I excited?
Yeah.
I thought the Joe Rogan idea was a good one. Just like a 4 hour, like 4 hours in the octagon, free for all. But we live in a gerontocracy, which is really the sign of like a failing regime. And some of my Russian friends have likened it to the late years of the Soviet Union. But Joe Biden simply cannot manage 4 hours of sustained mental activity. And Donald Trump, while he's open to it, he's like, and I commend him for that. You know, I love watching his interviews. I like watching his speeches. He's completely off script, but there's a level of mental decay there where I don't think he can be coherent for 4 hours enough to make it interesting or stay on the issues. It would become kind of like it'd just be
postmodern stream of consciousness.
Right. Yeah.
Virginia
It would be like Faulkner's child, like a child in a Faulknerian narrative.
Yeah.
But I mean, the DNC would never allow anything that democratic to take place, just a 4 hour free for all. So I think the debates are going to be really carefully managed. They'll be standing really far apart. And
I mean, Trump does also have a physical weakness. You notice that thing where he's just leaning into the lectern or the podium?
Trump?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's like he really merges with it. It's like,
I mean, at the same time,
one, and then he turns around, goes like nearly 180, as Matt Taibbi points out.
Everyone said he was on Adderall in 2016 because he out-campaigned Hillary. He was doing twice as many events as her. And now he's accusing Joe Biden of doing, uppers.
He probably does.
Because, I mean, I don't know how it's a good way to keep Biden awake.
Yeah.
I mean, if I live to be 80 or however old, 78, there's no way I could sustain that kind of activity. There's no fucking way. I went on a book tour once in the UK, riding Richard Branson's broken down neoliberal trains, the Virgin trains, up and down England, all the way to Scotland. I was doing one talk a day in one city a day, sometimes 3 talks per city.
Right.
And by the end, I was like a shell of a man. I was like half the man I never was.
Right.
I was like, I
the
couldn't
original
believe
version
it.
of the Stone Temple Pilots song.
Yeah. And I was like, gonna go the way of Alice in Chains lead singer, and just like, I was ready to OD or something. It was just, and I was thinking, like, how can you campaign across a huge country like the U.S.?
Just recently?
Now, this was from my book, The 51 Day War, which was in like 2015.
Oh my God. How old? Yeah, you're way younger. I mean,
I was way younger. Yeah, I was young. It was 5 years ago. And, the UK, I mean, that's not a pleasant place to travel through. Like, the road food sucks.
Yeah. But I mean, to be fair, you would have been flown. Well, right. To be fair, I mean, if you had been, the comparison would have been being flown around and put up in fancy hotels. Then you'd know.
We usually get like a day or 2 off on a book tour, but there was no time off. And that's what campaigning is like when you're campaigning for president. But this is like a pseudo campaign. It's a virtual campaign. I don't expect much from the debates is what I'm saying. And honestly, I mean, I'm not freaking out right now. Like, I think there could actually be a peaceful transfer of power that will be undramatic. And I think that might disappoint a lot of people.
Right.
About the question of will there be socialist governments in Latin America?
Oh, right. Yeah.
I would just point the questioner and everyone to an article by Guillaume Long in Open Democracy. I don't know if you could pull it up maybe.
Sure.
And he was the foreign minister of Ecuador under Rafael Correa, who has just been banned from running by
How do you spell his
Ecuador.
last name? Sorry.
Long, Long, Guillaume Long.
Okay. Moreno versus Correa. It's okay. That is in
I'll find
Portuguese. Okay, I got it. The battle for democracy in Ecuador.
it. Yeah.
All right.
And basically what he describes is how under a US controlled administration, which is now effectively a regime in Ecuador, it is impossible to contest this. They've made it impossible to contest their government. They've locked up his former VP, Jorge Glass, under phony corruption charges. Correa is barred from running for president or Senate. He also faces 8 years in prison if he comes back to the country. And every kind of trick in the book has been employed to eliminate opposition to this neoliberal government, which is privatizing everything. The same thing has happened in Bolivia, where Evo Morales, who was ousted, was barred from running for Senate after being forbidden from running for president. And his party, MAS, is ahead in all of the polls.
Right.
It's so clear that they would win an election if it was held today. And so they keep using the pandemic to delay the election and kick the can down the road. It now appears that in the middle of October, there will be an election. But the point is that, and this is a point Guillaume has made to me personally, is that as a representative of the Latin American left who got to serve as foreign minister because of the pink tide, of the tide of socialist and social democratic governments, is that if the left was able to run in fair elections that where the US didn't interfere, they would win. They would sweep the continent again. We've seen in Brazil with the Lava Jato phony corruption investigation, that the Department of Justice was managing that investigation in order to destroy all opposition to their program, which eventually led to the rise of Jair Bolsonaro. And I think they're going to try to get rid of Bolsonaro and replace him with Sergio Moro, who is his justice minister. And in Brazil, they call him Mr. CIA.
Because Bolsonaro is just too over the top. One
other thing that's happening in Brazil is his finance minister, Paulo Guedes, is one of the kind of like Chicago boys, like a real kind of neoliberal austerity character. And during the pandemic, Bolsonaro figured out that if he just dumped money on the public, including the poor, and provided subsidies to people while they were unable to work, his popularity would go up, and his popularity is shooting up among a part of the population you think would hate him. And Guedes is freaking out. He's like, this isn't what I signed up for, man. Like, I thought you were just like Pinochet, but he's not. So, there's all these corruption investigations of him. But the point is, Latin America is an area with a few exceptions where democracy will bring to power leftists, and democracy has been systematically dismantled in every country that has produced a pro-US government. I mean, I haven't even talked about Central America. And so, you should respect the countries that John Bolton points to as the troika of tyranny, Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. They've actually held on. And while they're trying to have elections in Nicaragua and Venezuela, the US is trying to prevent those elections from being legitimate. Pay attention to the gray zone in 2021, because we'll be covering Nicaragua's election, where the US is definitely going to try to interfere and claim something illegitimate took place and try to spark another coup attempt. I mean, it's just very clear that's going to happen.
Yeah. Luckily, you have Ben Norton in Nicaragua.
Well, yeah. I mean, I went down there with him. I don't know if it was last year or whatever, but he decided to go back right before the lockdown took place in New York, and it was a pretty good move. Nicaragua has managed the pandemic really well. They've managed to keep infections down and to isolate vulnerable parts of the population and keep their economy, which has been extremely vulnerable since a US-backed coup in 2018, They've managed to keep the economy active, and they're, subsidizing small vendors, people in the informal economy, and subsidizing the tourism industry. So it's an interesting model. And if you look at Nicaragua versus the Northern Triangle countries, which are the countries that are where they have some of the most violence on earth, and they've developed that way under U.S. control, their populations are under harsh lockdowns, and they're poor people who live hand to mouth day to day, and they're unable to go out and work. They're suffering, and they're getting nothing in return. So again, I think people really need to look at the countries that have held on and understand what that means for their populations.
Someone else said, are you doing any research on the banks creating the money to fund our economic system?
It's too vague of a question.
Yeah, I don't know what that. Yeah. Let me.
Probably, but I'm not anyway.
Let me see.
One more and I got to roll.
Okay. All right. Let me give you this last one. Current from Bigolomeo. Current estimates have us on our trajectory of 5 degrees plus Celsius from as early as 2070 to around 2100. No life in the sea, decimated forests, no large animals. Few medium-sized animals, social collapse, our billionaires are suicidal.
It just sounded like magnetic poetry. Can you
read
that, or
want me to read it again, or is that just okay?
Tell me what the question was.
It's a comment, I guess, about how screwed we are and how our billionaires are suicidal. But they're not suicidal because they're not going to be around. That's the issue. If they were.
Yeah, I don't think they're suicidal. I think they are actually they'll be the last people standing. I mean, the science fiction is a good way of understanding what they kind of world they see for themselves.
Yeah. It's really depressing. And is there a word for like killing your own children? There's like what is it? There is for brothers, for your parents. Infanticide, I guess. Infanticide.
Fratricide.
Well, fratricide is brothers and sisters. Infanticide is your kids. But what about grandkids? Because that's kind of what this is. I think that's what billionaires are doing.
Yeah, sure. I mean, they do so out of necessity without even knowing, and they still bask in our reverence. I mean, the most public billionaires are the ones who are the most revered. Because they buy good publicity for themselves. Bill Gates spends like 25 to 50 million a year on media, and he buys himself good media. People love him anyway. They think he's some kind of genius on producing a vaccine. When his vaccination programs in India have, for example, killed children, they basically led to hundreds of deaths of girls who were living in ashrams. His polio vaccine was tested on them. They didn't require any parental consent because they didn't have parents. They were orphans living in ashrams.
Wow.
And they're not there anymore. We have a piece at the Gray Zone by Michelle Greenstein and Jeremy Lafredo on the dark side of Bill Gates.
Wow.
But this is someone who's more powerful than most governments in the U.S. In the world. His political empire is more powerful. He's the second largest funder, maybe the first now that the Trump administration has pulled out of the World Health Organization. And many people look to him as a civilizational savior. So it's not just that billionaires are what I saw some commenter called ecocidal or suicidal. It's also that we meaning like the mass population of the West often reveres them. We haven't even gotten to the point where we can just hate them and want to take their heads off for the most part. And they control. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. The more billionaires the West produces, the more control of the media they have. So I think when you look at Back to the Planet of the Humans, the most powerful section of the film, which was so eye-opening to me, was that the mainstream environmental movement is relying wholly, almost entirely, on billionaires for support instead of their own constituents. And that should invalidate whatever they want to do. And back to the question on Latin America, I don't think the hope lies in the West. The hope lies in the global South. That's in colonized countries, people understand these issues so much better. And when I go to Latin America, I don't have to explain myself the way I do to indoctrinated Americans. Americans are the most indoctrinated people on the planet that I've met. I don't have to explain myself the same way about, that there aren't good rebel billionaires, for example, or that regime change isn't going to save the children of Syria. It just feels natural to people down there. They have sort of a built-in political education because of their own history and their own experience. And so the hope comes from there.
Hope comes there. Okay. Speaking of hope, any comment you want to make on Stephen Cohen?
Well, we just did a Moderate Rebels episode.
Oh, you did? Okay, go.
And I spoke about it, but I would just say I last saw him in January, which wasn't long ago, and he was at the top of his game. He and Katrina Vanden Heuvel, who's the publisher of The Nation, came down to Washington, and he did an event downtown here at the Metropolitan Club for a group called the Empire Salon, which brings together a lot of kind of foreign policy dissenters, people who came out of the diplomatic corps and the foreign policy world in the US, but also a lot of mainstream-minded people. And he's came to talk about Russia, to help them understand what Russia's national interest is, why it behaves the way it does in the world. And he faced a lot of opposition during Q&A, and it was just impressive to watch him really calmly and elegantly bat down somewhat hysterical questioning and criticism, building on sort of leaning on his scholarship and his experience. And he was sort of a one-of-a-kind figure in the US, one of the last true independent Russia experts who speaks Russian, who had experience in the Soviet Union as a scholar. He was a liberal when he was considered a liberal within the sort of reformist mainstream of Russian scholarship as a younger man. But, as he watched the Soviet Union be dismantled and 3 to 5 million people just killed through this neoliberal project imposed on Russia in the 1990s by the Harvard boys, Larry Summers and his crew, he became an opponent of U.S. policy towards Russia and someone who sought to build better relations with Russia at a time when the U.S. wanted to milk a Cold War out of Putin's rise, when Putin began restoring order to Russia and bringing its GDP back up and restoring Russia's role as a global power. Stephen Cohen advocated peaceful relations with a fellow nuclear power, which I think is the logical thing any anti-war person would want to do. And he spent the last 4 years of his life being demonized, not just, by neocons and the Max Boots of the world, but people inside the nation. And I would see on Facebook pages like Nation editors just demeaning him, demonizing him, calling him like a Trump puppet because he saw through Russiagate. And, when we last talked, he talked about how it actually had affected him. I think he deserved a lot better, and it shows how debased our political culture is, including what passes for progressive political culture. I expected I would see him again, 2 months after we last saw each other, and we were planning to. The lockdown took place, and I wasn't able to travel up to New York as much as I had, and then one day I just find out that he's dead. So it's a huge tragedy and a big loss. And I don't know, no one can really stand in his shoes and accomplish what he did in this atmosphere of Cold War hysteria.
Yeah. Well, that's a nice tribute.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on. And see you soon. I'll stay on for a little bit to talk to my guests, but really, you do amazing work. It's nice to hear someone who does amazing work praise someone who did amazing work. I'm sad I didn't have him on the show. Stephen Cohen, not for lack of, I wanted to. And there's a lot of,
I would invite Katrina on, and she wrote a really touching tribute to him.
I think I'll reach out to her. Yeah.
I think it's worth doing. And, she remains one of the sane kind of center left voices.
Yeah. Maybe I'll have Aaron on too, because they were very close because of the Russiagate stuff. But yeah.
All right. Well, good seeing you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Max.
Peace.
Bye. So yeah, he did deserve better. That was nice to hear Max say that. About someone who, as everyone is saying, deserves a lot better. Okay, everyone feels depressed. Don't feel depressed. How can we end? Oh, I know what I'll do to put you guys in a good mood. Hold on. 1 second. Some of you may not care about this, but 1 second. Come on, my little baby girl. Ready to make people feel in a good mood? Come on, we gotta do this. We gotta do this for the people. Here's my little starlet. Where did my headphones go? Boo. Bodie. Look at this little girl. Right, Boo? Whenever people become too down, we got little Boo Boo. Hold on, let me shut this off. Look at this little baby girl. Here's your little turtle. Say hi. What, Boo? Gotta clean you up a little bit if you're gonna be on camera. Is she not like the cutest? She's such a diva. Her name is Bodie. She's a rescue. Oh, my hair story? There's no hair story. I actually thank you guys for complimenting my hair. You know what I do for my hair? Nothing. I wash it. I put conditioner in it. I brush. Oh, this is my trick. I brush my hair in the shower with conditioner in it. And then, excuse you. Hold on. Oops. Oh, I just saw this thing from someone about Max, their favorite photo of Max. I'll have to get that. Apparently, William wrote, my favorite picture of Max was when he was in Gaza in 2014, had a beautiful redheaded baby in arms. Happy moment during a devastating summer. I don't know about that. But so here's my trick for my hair. Bodie, should we tell them? What's your trick for your hair? You got more than I do, kind of. I just shower, wash my hair with shampoo. What are you saying? Do you guys hear her little noises? Is she not the cute? Bodie, you're so cute. It's ridiculous. Okay. Shower, shampoo, conditioner. Here's the trick. I brush my hair with the conditioner in it. And then I don't, and the reason that's important is because, excuse you. The reason that's important is because I can't brush it dry. If I brush it dry, it doesn't look good. Hold on. If I brush it dry, it gets frizzy. No, it's not dog speak for put me down. I don't think so. She's a Lhasa Apso. Yeah, she does look a lot like a whatchamacallit, an Ewok. So I don't know. I'll use whatever shampoo and conditioner. The point is, I'm putting her to sleep soon. The point is that when I was younger, I had very straight, shiny hair. And then when I got to like 13, it kind of got wavy. And I would try to keep brushing it. And they're asking me about my hair. Someone just said, why are people interested in this? You think I'm not just randomly telling people? Anyway, I know she's the cutest thing ever, right? Okay, the answer is this. All I do is I wash my hair, and then the trick is I brush my hair when the conditioner's in with a comb or brush, and then I dry it normally, and then I don't touch it again. Sometimes I'll put like some leave-in conditioner in. Stop telling me how to treat my little baby. I'm gonna put her to sleep very soon. And this was because everyone was very depressed. What are some of Bodhi's favorite bands? I don't know. She's not really into music. She's more into politics. Oh, she is a tired baby. All right. My dad loves Yoda. It's funny. You're so cute. Anyway, so that's my hair story. All right. Right now, actually, you know what? I'm using this conditioner I think you get Trader Joe's, and it's mint. Anyway. All right. I will see everyone. I'll see you Sunday. And then Tuesday night, we will be doing, Matt Taibbi and I will be doing a debate show, drinking game live thing. So that's Tuesday night. But I'll see you Sunday night. What was that? A little protest snorts. Sunday night, I'm having on Gerald Horn. Right? The professor. Right, Boo-Boo? Okay. She's the cutest. All right. Bye, everyone. Oh, wait. You are a little piglet. And I'm going to make my dad give it. Oh, everyone say happy anniversary to my parents. They were married for 47 years. Oh, you're so cute. Right? 47 years? Mom. She said she's trying not to think about it. What, over 40 years? 47. It is 47. That's insane. 47 years. Right, Boo-Boo? And then you just came into our lives how long ago? When did we get Bodhi? 6 years ago? What was life like before you? That's probably how my parents feel like about life before me, right, Boo? All right. Shauna, what is it? How do you say what is it? Is it which Shana Tova? Which you don't know? Yes, you do. Good Yantif? Which one is it? Both. All right. Good night, everyone. Oh, patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Spread the word about the show. Share, like, watch. You see, everyone subscribe, please. Subscribe. Yeah, they've been married longer than I've been alive, too. Well, not obviously, I shouldn't say. But everyone should subscribe. All right. And like not everyone likes these live streams. Some people like shorter things, so I got short clips. Oh, all right. Bye, everyone. Oh.